Two Worlds I Studied at Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176 Hagrid's Thoughts. After obtaining the invisibility cloak, Moon's plan to deal with Montoya can be optimized again. Invisibility cloak plus monocular glasses. It allows Moon to detect the opponent's deployment and equipment very well and prevent possible magic traps. Invisibility cloak plus sleepy fungus spore powder. It can be a good surprise attack, releasing spore powder when the opponent is unprepared. Prevent the opponent from having time to form an effective attack and complete the absolute control of the battlefield. Invisibility cloak plus Professor Flitwick's training plan. Improve Moon's spell attack ability, interfere with the opponent's perception, and make the enemy unable to accurately judge his position and trajectory. It can also perfectly avoid the opponent's attack and avoid substantial damage. In addition, the invisibility cloak can also ensure that Moon can evacuate safely and get rid of tracking when the battle situation is unfavorable. Of course, when using the invisibility cloak, it is also necessary to note that this alchemical item is not always effective, and the timeliness must also be taken into consideration. After reviewing the entire plan, Moon made a new discovery. We also need to find a way to cover up the smell on our bodies, and be careful not to make too much noise, so that we can ensure that everything is safe. Moon has learned from the two captured magicians that Montoya knows a magic that can transform into a strange animal. At that time, his sense of smell and hearing will be enhanced, which is also a point that Moon must consider. The smell may be solved with potions, and as for the sound, spells are better. After formulating a new plan, Moon put the invisibility cloak away. At the same time, he also told Bengbeng to keep the phoenix feathers well. After all, these two things are too precious, and it is inevitable that they will be noticed by people with ulterior motives when they go to another world. On Wednesday morning, after getting up, Moon studied the newly borrowed ancient spells, exploring the original mark of magic. This book records a wide variety of ancient magic gestures. From simple entry-level gestures to extremely complex advanced gestures that require deep magic control, they are all involved. Moreover, the book has a detailed action breakdown for each gesture, including the degree of bending of the fingers, the direction of the arm's extension, and the coordination of the body's posture. And the author also provides a large number of accurate hand-drawn illustrations for these gestures. When Moon had just learned Mirror Light Against the Tide, he still didn't understand why the faithless couldn't just use their hands to cast magic, but also had to use their arms and bodies. Now he knows that these movements are the necessary procedures for casting ancient magic. No wonder the gestures of ancient magic were abandoned. These large amounts of movements are not only redundant, but also consume a lot of physical strength. Moon now feels more and more that the direction of wizards in the world of Hogwarts is very correct in their research on magic. It is much more convenient to use a wand with a spell than to use gestures with a spell. For example, Mirror Light Against the Tide has 4 sentences in ancient language. Each sentence has 3 sets of complex movements. The last sentence of the spell Mirror Light Shines, Against the Tide Surges, All Comers Return, Protect My Body. Moon must do a set of movements to complete the shield generation. This movement is divided into 3 groups: starting, building, and stabilizing. Only when all 3 groups of movements are completed and combined with this spell, will this spell take effect. Moon has now mastered this spell, but he used to imitate it. Now after reading the information about ancient magic, he knows the true meaning of these movements. What Moon needs to do now is to separate these actions one by one, understand their meanings, and finally transform them into the movements of waving a wand. Only in this way can the real Mirror Light Against the Tide transformation be completed. After Moon had just roughly browsed the contents of ancient spells, exploring the original mark of magic, the portrait door of the common room suddenly opened, and Moon looked over curiously. Usually no one came in or out at this time. Did you go to see the Mirror of Erised again? Seeing Harry appear, Moon knew that the little wizard must have gone to the castle for a night tour again. He knew that Harry was actually very attached to the magic mirror. Even if everyone else decided not to go, he would definitely try it himself. Yes, I knew that you were the only one here during this time period. Where's Hermione? Hearing Harry's question, Moon realized that something seemed to be missing in the common room. I don't know, maybe she didn't get up today. Moon just glanced at the place where Hermione usually sat, and then looked at Harry. "How is it? Did you see the person you wanted to see?" Moon knew the reason why Harry went to find the Mirror of Erased. Although he had never seen his biological parents, Moon's life was not so unfortunate. Harry was different. For him, not going back to 4 Privet Drive for Christmas was the best arrangement. "No, but I probably won't go there again," Harry said as he walked to Moon's side and sat on the sofa. He really wanted to talk to someone. Seeing Moon's puzzled look, Harry told him the reason without waiting for him to ask. "I just met Dumbledore in that abandoned classroom. He gave me some advice and said that the mirror would be removed tomorrow. It is of no benefit to indulge in unreal dreams or unpredictable futures and forget about real life." Remember this, Harry kept remembering what Dumbledore had just said. Although he could not fully understand it now, he knew that the headmaster would not have any bad intentions. After hearing what Harry said, Moon instantly guessed that the owner of the footprint should be Dumbledore. "You mean that the mirror belongs to Dumbledore and he saw everything you saw in the mirror?" Moon asked curiously. "Yes, he said that his invisibility magic is very advanced, and ordinary people can't see through it at all." Harry said this and remembered that he and Moon used their wands to check the half-footprint. "Did he see the reflections of other people?" Moon asked hurriedly. "He should have seen it. Anyway, he said that Ron was the president of the Male Students Union. After all, it only happened in the mirror over there." Although Harry didn't know why Moon asked about this, he still told the truth. After hearing Harry's retelling, Moon knew why he got the invisibility cloak. Dumbledore should have seen Moon's strange reflection in the magic mirror, and then asked the Phoenix Fox to deliver the invisibility cloak. Did Dumbledore say anything else? Moon didn't know how much the headmaster knew, he could only guess based on Harry's words. Nothing else, he just said that I would see the Mirror of Erased again, and hoped that I wouldn't worry when the time comes, and said that someone would help me, but I didn't understand what this sentence meant at all. When Harry said this, Moon's eyes were fixed on him. The content of the letter yesterday automatically came to mind at this moment. Help Harry, but what kind of help does Harry need? Moon didn't know what Dumbledore wanted to express. Moon hadn't seen Hermione since Wednesday morning. It wasn't until the first defense against the dark arts class in the morning that Moon saw Hermione's roommate Lavender and asked her curiously. "Oh, Hermione caught a cold and went to the school infirmary last night." "Cold? Is it serious?" "I don't know. By the way, she said she wanted to borrow your course notes and asked you to remember them in detail." When Lavender said this, there was a little disgust in her tone. Because this morning when she said she would lend her notes to Hermione hesitated for a long time, and finally decided to borrow Moon's notes. Although Lavender knew that Moon's attitude towards learning was more careful than anyone else, she was still a little depressed when she thought of Hermione's attitude. "Okay, I'll go to the school infirmary tonight and give him my notes." Moon didn't know why Hermione caught a cold, but he knew that after the weather cooled down, many little wizards sneezed in the castle. For every little wizard, there was no need to take notes on the content of the defense against the dark arts class. It was enough to prepare a textbook for this class. Especially for Hermione, she had already read the entire first-year defense against the dark arts textbook. So for Moon, he only needed to focus on learning his own things in this class. That's right. More than 3 months after entering Hogwarts, Moon finally learned something from Quirrell's defense against the dark arts class. Moon was originally thinking about finding a potion to cover up his body odor, but after smelling the familiar smell of garlic, he knew what to do. Of course, Moon would not use garlic to cover up his body odor, because this would only point out his position to the enemy. As for what to use instead of garlic, Moon remembered that in the herb club, among the 32 herbs he took care of, there was one herb that was very suitable for replacing garlic. The invisibility cloak combined with the magical herbs. This can be regarded as an optimization of Moon's tactical preparation, which can increase the chances of winning. As for how to carry the herbs, Moon thought that Hermione had already done a good demonstration. "It seems that I must go to see this little witch in person tonight, because he finally learned something from the defense against the dark arts class." Moon's perception of Professor Quirrell has also improved a little. However, the professor seems to have been busy with something recently and has never come to Moon to discuss the defense against the dark arts club. After the herbology class on Wednesday afternoon, Moon took Bounce to Hagrid's cabin as agreed. When Moon walked down the path outside the castle, he saw Hagrid leading Fang back from patrolling the Forbidden Forest. "I knew you would come at this time, so I came back early." Hagrid was very happy to see Moon. He stretched out his big hand and put bounce on Fang first, and then walked towards the cabin with Moon. Moon's eyes stayed on Hagrid's little red umbrella. He had encountered Hagrid patrolling the Forbidden Forest before, and at that time, the Forbidden Forest warden would carry a giant crossbow with Fang. Now the giant crossbow was gone, and he only carried a small red umbrella. Of course, Moon knew that the small red umbrella contained the one that had been repaired just last week. But seeing a tall wizard holding a small red umbrella to patrol the Forbidden Forest, Moon still felt that this combination was a bit weird. After noticing Moon's gaze, Hagrid lowered his head and whispered to him. "It's great, much more useful than that giant crossbow." Hearing Hagrid's words, Moon knew that the other party should have tried to use the wand to cast spells in the Forbidden Forest many times. What is in the Forbidden Forest? When Hagrid patrolled the Forbidden Forest, he used to carry a giant crossbow, but now he has to carry a wand. This inevitably made Moon a little curious. What exactly is in the Forbidden Forest that Hagrid needs to face so seriously? Oh, it's nothing. Most of them are very cute, such as the big white spider, unicorn, centaur, thestral, hippogriff. Hagrid knows all the magical animals by heart, remembering them in great detail, including their territories and preferences. However, Moon still disagreed when he heard him say that they were very cute, especially the big white spider. Besides these, is there any danger? You still carry your umbrella with you all the time. Oh, this one. Hagrid raised his little red umbrella and explained. It's not these little cuties that it has to deal with, but the ferocious animals that break into the Forbidden Forest, and some poachers. Through Hagrid's description, Moon knew that the Forbidden Forest of Hogwarts was the largest gathering place for magical animals in the entire British wizarding world. There would be many greedy guys who ventured in here just to get the fur and flesh of these magical animals. In order to deal with them, Hagrid had to patrol the Forbidden Forest once a day. While Hagrid was talking, they finally returned to the cabin. As soon as the door opened, Fang carried Bengbeng and ran to the corner immediately. There was a newly woven wooden basket. "Shut up, Fang, that's not food." Hagrid noticed Fang's action and immediately ran over to take out a round object from the big dog's mouth. Moon followed curiously because he heard Bung's happy voice. "What is this?" Moon repeated Bung's question. "Oh, it's Puffy. This is a method I've found to strengthen the level in the Forbidden Forest," Hagrid said and showed Moon what he had in his hand. This is a magical creature that is smaller than Moon's fist. It is covered with cream yellow fur and is shaped like a ball. It is very cute. Perhaps because it was just taken out of Fang's dog's mouth, Puffy kept trembling in Hagrid's palm. "How do I use this? It doesn't look very strong." Moon already knew that Hagrid's level was a ferocious three-headed dog, and that big guy had once bitten Snape. But the furry, soft little guy in front of him seemed to have no ability except being cute. After hearing Moon's question, Hagrid first put Puffy in Moon's hand, then walked to the door and closed it. "This little guy is indeed not strong. Many people use it as a pet, but it also has an advantage," Hagrid said and walked to the bedside, where he placed a newly borrowed record player on the chest of drawers. When he stuck the pointer of the record player, soothing music sounded slowly. The little guy in Moon's hand jumped happily after hearing the music, and jumped more and more. "You see, it's like this. Puffy will jump very hard after hearing the music, and you know." Moon already knew from Hagrid's words how to pass the three-headed dog level. "Music, sleep. Don't worry, I will keep it a secret." Seeing Hagrid's somewhat nervous expression, Moon said with a firm look. "Oh, of course I believe you," Hagrid said and looked outside the house with some worry. Moon curiously put Puffy back into the wooden frame and asked, "By the way, now that you have found a way, what do you want me to do?" Chapter 177 The Safest Way. How to make the puffy hair become the best assistant for the three-headed dog Lu. Hagrid has tried this problem once. "That's what I did, but I didn't expect Lu to not like it at all and chewed it all up." Hagrid picked up some broken wooden frames beside the stove in the wooden house and said helplessly, "You mean to let me make a more suitable wooden frame to serve as an earmuff holder for Lu? "Yes, I think it may be that I made it not very comfortable. Lu doesn't like it," Hagrid said with a lonely look on his face, and he seemed to be very sad that he couldn't make Lu like it. Moon didn't notice Hagrid's expression. He was still thinking about the feasibility of this plan. Hagrid's method was to make 3 huge earmuff holders with wood, put the puffy hair in them, and then put them on the three-headed dog. In this way, music can't make the three-headed dog fall asleep again, but this approach has its drawbacks. If you do this, Won't it weaken Lu Wei's hearing ability? I think this is a bigger loophole, Moon said with some concern. But this is the best solution I can think of. Hagrid threw the broken wood into the stove helplessly, and his expression became more and more lonely. He certainly understood the loophole that Moon mentioned. In Hagrid's opinion, Lu Wei's only weakness is that he will fall into deep sleep after hearing music. And Puffy is just the opposite. As long as this little guy is put into Lu Wei's ears, Lu Wei, who has fallen into deep sleep, will wake up immediately. He thought about this combination all night. I know you may have been paying attention to Lu Wei's ears, but we can also make a shelf and put Puffy on other parts of Lu Wei's body, so as to avoid blocking Lu Wei's ears and prevent him from falling asleep. Yes, in fact, it's not just the ears. As long as it can wake Lu Wei up, it's actually very sensitive to sound. Moon certainly knew that dogs were very sensitive to sound. This creature is actually similar to wolves, and strong hearing is the key to their capture of prey. Then where do you think it would be best to put these little guys? After hearing Moon's suggestion, Hagrid abandoned the earmuffs that had been bitten to pieces by Lu Wei and looked at Moon curiously. It would be best if it would not affect Lu Wei's battle and could serve as a reminder. What do you think of a collar? Moon thought about it and found that this was the only place that would be most suitable. A collar of puffy hair, I think it would work. Seeing Hagrid's agreement, Moon immediately took out a piece of parchment and spread it on the table, and began to design the style of the collar. In order to allow the puffy hair that hears the music to serve as a reminder, all obstacles should be removed from the inner layer of the collar. This will ensure that Lu Wei can clearly feel the beating puffy hair. And in order to prevent thieves from opening it easily, the sturdiness of the collar must be ensured. Thinking of this, Moon looked up at Hagrid again. What if there is a spell that specifically destroys the collar? Don't worry, Fluffy is very sensitive to spells, and it has 3 heads. That's right, after all, even Professor Snape can't dodge it, but it's better to ensure that it is strong and has a certain degree of concealment. Hearing Hagrid's words, Moon naturally increased the difficulty of the design. In his opinion, as long as the 3 collars are not destroyed by the opponent at once, then it can still play a role. At this time, as long as Fluffy reacts, the thief will have to deal with attacks from 3 directions. Moon has a deep understanding of this attack method. He is now training with a giant squid, but in fact, he can only deal with one arm of the giant squid at most. If there is one more, Moon can't even last a round. After spending an hour, Moon designed the latest collar pattern. Not only is it strong, concealed, and comfortable, but he also plans to add some alchemical runes on it. Moon once found a strengthening rune on the main part of the alchemical key. This is a rune that can increase the strength of alchemical items. And Moon has also found the correct writing method and interpretation of the pampas grass in the most obscure words, a preliminary study of alchemical runes. Now it's just right to try it on the pampas grass collar. In order to ensure the firmness and the ability to engrave runes, we'd better choose a harder wood, rosewood. Can we get it? After Moon finished drawing the whole drawing, he handed it to Hagrid and said, "There are a lot of pampas grass in the Forbidden Forest. Many wizards have come to me to buy this kind of wood to make furniture, but I didn't agree. Okay, and I left 36 grooves on each collar to place pampas grass. You may need to grab some more. The ones now are definitely not enough. Don't worry, there are a lot of pampas grass in the Forbidden Forest." Hagrid turned the drawing in his hand several times before looking at Moon with some doubts. What are these densely packed small characters? Oh, this is a kind of alchemical rune that can be used separately. It's a small innovation of mine, alchemy. You actually started studying this? Hagrid was very surprised. He knew how difficult alchemy was, especially when Moon was so young. I have to say, I actually see the shadow of Dumbledore in you. Hagrid swallowed his saliva. Although what he said just now was his true thought, he still felt unbelievable when he said it. Don't say that. This is just a small test of mine. It may not work, but even if it fails, it will not affect the use of the collar, as the alchemical item that he has been in contact with for the longest time. Moon has studied the runes on the key most thoroughly. This also gave him the confidence to carve the runes on the collar for use. Okay, I will prepare the materials as soon as possible, and then catch some puffs. Is there anything else I need to prepare? Hagrid asked again after putting the drawings on the table. Oh, if possible, can I meet Fluffy? I want to measure the size of its body, and then optimize the design again to ensure the comfort of the collar. Hearing what Moon said, Hagrid couldn't help but hesitate. He thought for a while before speaking. This must be approved by Dumbledore. I will apply to him now. Oh, don't be so anxious. You can prepare the materials first. If Dumbledore agrees, you can ask Harry's hideaway to notify me. Well, to be honest, you should also raise an owl. Let's talk about it later. I think it's good to have Bengbeng now. Noticing that Bengbeng, who was playing with Fang, was staring at him closely, Moon hurriedly expressed his opinion. You have a really good relationship. Anyway, the plan has been determined. How about some afternoon tea? Seeing Hagrid was about to prepare bubble cakes again, Moon hurriedly stopped him. He had noticed that the small alarm clock on Hagrid's desk pointed to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No, I may have to go to the Black Lake. After Moon received guidance and advice from Professor Flitwick yesterday, he designed a new training method. Today, he just had time to try it again with a giant squid. Okay, you must be careful. Hagrid didn't know what Moon was going to do. But he knew that every time Moon went there, the water in the Black Lake was like a war, and it was terribly muddy. After talking to Hagrid, Moon took Bumblebee out of the cabin and headed for the Black Lake. The giant squid was very happy to see Bumblebee again. After the two magical animals talked to each other, the giant squid put Bumblebee on its head and swam a big circle in the Black Lake. After more than 10 minutes, Moon held a wet Bumblebee and had to use the drying spell and smooth fur on it. Gee, so comfortable. After cleaning Bumblebee, Moon discussed a new training plan with the giant squid, who was still not satisfied. After receiving Professor Flitwick's advice on Tuesday, Moon studied it several times. Combined with his own actual situation, Moon found that what he needed to master most now was actually quick reaction ability and increasing the strength of the spell. Professor Flitwick described in detail how to train quick reaction ability in this suggestion. It includes 4 aspects: visual training, auditory training, magic induction training, and physical reaction speed. Moon actually understood the training of vision, hearing and body in this suggestion. But he had asked Professor Flitwick about magic induction. The other party just explained that this is a subtle induction that can only be formed after many battles. In fact, for you, Mr. Scarlett, the first 2 trainings should be enough. As for magic induction, it cannot be formed without hundreds of duels. According to Professor Flitwick, Moon guessed that this induction should be an ability that can only be improved under an extreme state. This reminded him of the strange state he encountered twice. In that state, he could indeed use magic to sense things around him more clearly and in detail. However, this state is something that Moon can only encounter. Professor Flitwick believes that this is an ability that wizards can master normally through training. Such remarks made Moon more confident in his experiment of developing brain magic. The visual training formulated by Professor Flitwick hopes that Moon will go to the Quidditch field to observe the Golden Snitch. He is required to be able to find the Golden Snitch faster than the Seeker, so as to strengthen the visual training. But Moon does not think that the Golden Snitch can achieve the training effect he wants. Compared to him standing on the ground and observing the Golden Snitch in the sky, Moon thought it was more useful to feel the giant squid's claws coming at him. Especially when 2 or 3 claws of this big guy stretched out at the same time, Moon had to distinguish them carefully to know which one would attack him first. This allowed him to train his visual ability while also being able to better grasp the rhythm of the battle. Not only that, in the state of fighting with such a strong opponent as the giant squid, Moon was also able to subtly train his spell strength. Planned training does improve faster. Moon found that the results of his training today had improved a lot compared to Monday. Today, he was able to build a new obstacle before the giant squid's arm broke through 3 obstacles. Although the one fighting against Moon was only 1 claw of the giant squid. But it was very good for Moon to achieve such results. And with such results, it can also provide a faster way for Moon to train his hearing perception. Chi, ones, shishi, 1 10 plus 3 ones, shishi, 5 10s plus 6 ones. After the hearing training began, Bengbeng was always beside him to count. Moon's way of hearing training was to turn his back to the giant squid and use his hearing to cast obstacles to prevent the giant squid from touching him. Since it was the first time Moon tried this training method, he did not succeed once this afternoon. The giant squid was still too fast. Moon could not judge the exact direction just by hearing, let alone cast a spell. Bengbeng is 56, not 5 10s plus 6. While training the spell, Moon was also teaching Bengbeng to learn a new way of counting. Although this little guy likes shiny things, every time he describes his toys, he uses 1 pile, 2 piles. There is never a clear answer. After Bengbeng counted 10 10s, Moon's training today was truly over. Although Moon did not successfully block the giant squid's attack with his ears alone, Moon's reaction ability has indeed been strengthened. According to his current improvement speed, he should be faster than the suggestions made by Professor Flitwick. Almost one day of his training can achieve the effect of Professor Freeway's training method for a week. Of course, in addition to training obstacles, Moon also practiced other spells with a giant squid. In addition to the commonly used attack spells, Moon focused on training his newly mastered cutting spell. This is an intermediate spell he exchanged with Professor Snape on Monday. Snape said at the time that as long as Moon could lay a good foundation, he would give him a more advanced spell of the same type. This made Moon very excited, because Moon was indeed very talented in cutting magic. After only 2 days of learning this spell, Moon found that he could cast cutting spell continuously. This was faster than when he was learning Burning Flame and Thunder Explosion. And the strength of this spell was also strengthened in Moon's hands. Ordinary little wizards can only cut branches with cutting spell, at most, but Moon can already cut thinner stones with this spell. But for the giant squid, these are not enough. Each of Moon's cutting spells that hit it was like a tickle, not even a white mark was left. However, this giant squid relied on its quick reaction ability to let Moon's cutting spells help it break several barnacles on its body. I appreciate all the readers. I will not update 10,000 words before the new year. My stockpiled manuscripts are almost used up. I have to write more than 10,000 words. So I have to reduce the update, polish the outline, and try to save some manuscripts. I will come back after the new year. Thank you for your support. I will work hard to update and try not to write too much. Chapter 178 Hermione's Method. That was when Moon and the giant squid were training spells. After finishing all the work for the day, Snape finally had enough time to start analyzing the 2 new potion materials. Due to his rigorous attitude towards potions, Snape did not use these 2 materials directly to make potions after coming into contact with them. After going through a complete set of analysis processes, Snape had a deeper understanding of the characteristics of the 2 potion materials. The swim bladder of this strange fish can not only be used to stop bleeding, but also to make other wound medicines, and sedative potions may also be used. The shell of this conch has very simple potion properties, but it is more gentle. Using it to make body-strengthening potions should be able to eliminate many adverse reactions. As a potion master, Snape has a knowledge of potions far beyond that of ordinary people. After analyzing the 2 materials, hundreds of suitable potion formulas have flashed through his mind. These high-level potions seem to be able to be improved now, but the materials are really too few. Although Moon gave 10 ounces of each material, for Snape, this was far from enough. We can improve the most important potion first, and then find a way to ask the little wizard for some of the rest. Maybe I can also find a way to get a boat, and maybe I can find these materials. After returning from the Black Lake, Moon took his class notes and went to the school infirmary on the 2nd floor. Because there are many people with colds in the castle recently, the dozen beds in the school infirmary are already full. Madame Pomfrey has been very busy these days. When she saw Moon coming, she just asked him to wear a mask and went to prepare the treatment potion again. This potion is really hard to drink. Hermione had just finished a large cup of refreshing potion by Madame Pomfrey. This is an ordinary potion that can cure colds. After drinking it, the patient's ears will keep steaming out. This reminded Moon of the Hogwarts Express. The white steam is almost the same as the one coming out of Hermione's ears. Haven't you seen enough? I'm already very angry about this terrible cold. Do you know how much homework I have missed? For Hermione, homework always comes first. There's no need to be so anxious. Haven't you finished all the first-year courses? Of course, but knowledge is constantly updated, and my head is still groggy now, so I can't remember anything in the book at all. Moon had long known Hermione's learning progress, so he was not surprised to hear Hermione say that. Even though there were 3 piles of thick books on the table next to Hermione's bed. After taking out today's herbology notes from his bag, Moon handed them to her directly. You probably won't need the notes for defense against the dark arts, so there are only the contents of herbology. I knew you would be the one who remembered the most details. Hermione smiled happily as she watched Moon write about 10 inches of parchment. The reason she refused Lavender's course notes was because she wanted to get the most detailed information. Among all the students, only Moon could do this. Today's herbology class is about nettles, and most of it is practical content, but I have sorted out the practical records of each step with my memory, and I hope you can use it. Moon patiently explained to Hermione. "Don't worry. I will finish copying it tonight and return the notebook to you tomorrow morning." After Hermione had roughly flipped through the notebook, she looked at Moon with envy. "To be honest, I really envy you for having such a good memory. In fact, it's not all good to have it, because there are some things that you can't forget even if you want to." Hearing Moon's Versailles-like speech, Hermione was depressed and didn't want to talk. Moon didn't notice the subtle changes in Hermione's expression. He just looked at a sachet on the bedside table after the little witch talked about memory again. This was in the herbology class last week. After learning that rosemary can enhance memory, Hermione made a rosemary sachet and wore it on her body. According to Hermione herself, the effect of this sachet is very good. The reason why Moon paid attention to the sachet was that he wanted to solve the problem of covering up body odor, which was related to the sachet. "How did you make this sachet? It seems to be more breathable." In fact, Moon has seen a lot of sachets, but Hermione's is indeed special. Ever since the little witch put it on, she has been smelling the scent of rosemary, which is very nice. "Oh, it's mainly because of the fabric." According to Hermione's explanation, Moon knew that the fabric used to make the sachet came from a private tailor shop in London that specializes in custom-made clothes. "I didn't like that skirt, so I dismantled it, and then I got this sachet." Hermione was also very proud of her own creation. Anyway, she felt that after having this sachet, her learning speed had accelerated a lot. "So, if possible, can you make one for me?" "Why? Do you also need rosemary?" Hermione asked curiously. "No, I want to put a petal from the herb club." Moon is responsible for the care of the 32 plants in the herb club. These plants will bloom and bear fruit every year, and then new branches and buds will grow. If some seniors who have left need it, Professor Sprout will mail these herbal materials to them. But some seniors left the herbs in the club after graduation and no longer asked. The material that Moon wanted to make the sachet this time was just such a lonely plant. Traceless flower. According to Professor Sprout, this is the only Slytherin who joined the herb club and stayed here. Regulus Black. Since graduation, this senior seemed to have forgotten about this plant and did not send a single letter. The traceless flower? What kind of magical plant is this? When Hermione asked, she had already taken out her quill and notebook from the small bag beside her. She knew that Moon knew more about this, so whenever Moon said a new herbal plant name, she would record it down and fill her knowledge base. Yes, this flower is very special. After being crushed, it will release a magical substance that can make the odor in the air inactive, thereby achieving the purpose of eliminating and masking the odor. Moon repeated Professor Sprout's original words. This is really magical. It can be used to make fragrances or essential oils. After recording the content, Hermione thought of the use of this magical plant. Yes, that senior thought so too. The reason why the traceless flower was allowed by Professor Sprout to join the Grassland Club. It was because Regulus discovered that this plant could cover up the musty smell in some old houses and the peculiar smell of some wizards. Moon didn't have any special smell, but he had to prevent the enemy's sensitive sense of smell after transformation. "Okay, I will make a new sachet for you in the next 2 days." After Moon explained the characteristics of the whole herb, Hermione closed the record book with satisfaction. "Thank you, you're welcome. Besides, you have already paid," Hermione said and patted the content she had just recorded in her hand. In the eyes of this little witch, knowledge is more valuable than anything else. "Okay, then you should rest early." After Hermione agreed, Moon was about to leave the school infirmary. But at this time, the school nurse Madame Pomfrey, who is already busy, stopped him. "Mr. Scarlett, I'm so busy that I can't stop. Can you please go to Professor Snape and ask when the new stimulant will be delivered?" "Yes, Mom." Moon would not refuse the school nurse's request. This lady has taken good care of Moon since he came to the spell classroom for training. As a temporary neighbor, she often observes from the window of the small spell classroom to prevent Moon from getting hurt while training spells. After carefully asking Miss Pomfrey if she has any other requests, Moon came to the basement of the castle. This is also his first time to Snape's office. "Dong Dong Professor, are you there?" Chapter 179 Snape's Potion. Professor Snape's office is more remote than the potion classroom. But the temperature in this place is not as low as expected. Through the solid wooden door, Moon could feel that the fire in the room in front of him should have been burning for a long time. Just after Moon knocked on the door, a burst of angry roar came from behind the wooden door. "Did I say it? No one should disturb me." Moon heard Snape's anger, but he still summoned up the courage to shout again. "Professor, it was the school doctor Madame Pomfrey who asked me to come. She wanted to know when the refreshing potion could be made." The refreshing potion had actually been made a long time ago, but because he had to analyze the new materials, Snape did not send it up. But after hearing that it was Moon's voice, Snape took a look at the few remaining potion materials and the potion that had just begun to be experimented. He put away the cold expression on his face and tried to make himself look calmer. After doing this, he gently waved his hand and opened the door of the office with magic. Moon had been waiting at the door. Seeing the wooden door open but no one behind it, he walked into the office in a daze. "Professor, Moon had just said half a sentence when he found that Snape was making potions. The alcohol lamp under the crucible had been turned to the maximum fire. Snape added various materials to the crucible while chanting spells and stirring continuously. His eyes were always watching the changes in the potion in the crucible, and he didn't want to pay attention to the little wizard who had already walked into the office. Moon noticed Snape's nervousness and the two small packages of materials on the potion table that had been reduced a lot. He turned around and closed the door, standing there waiting quietly. Moon knew that Snape needed a quiet environment at this time. He watched quietly beside him and learned the potion master's potion-making process. Snape's method of making potions was very precise and skillful, and he would not hesitate to handle each potion material. His eyes kept following the constant movement of his hands, and he could even distract himself to deal with the flame situation and cast a new stirring spell at the same time. This surprised Moon, and he also knew that the ability of this potion professor was indeed extraordinary. However, Moon also found something unusual. Professor Snape's movements in refining potions were unusually light, but there were still fine beads of sweat on his forehead. This made Moon even more curious about what potion Snape was refining. About 30 minutes later, after adding all the materials to the crucible, Snape turned the flame of the alcohol lamp to the minimum, and then turned to look at Moon. "The refreshing potion is on the far left of the third shelf over there. Tell Pomfrey that I made some adjustments to the potion this time. It should be able to cure the colds of the young wizards quickly, but there will be some adverse reactions. Professor, what are they?" Hearing Snape's words, Moon asked almost subconsciously. But seeing Snape's unhappy eyes, Moon quickly added another sentence. "Oh, Professor, I have a friend in the school infirmary. He also caught a cold, so I was curious to ask." Although Moon explained, Snape's expression was still not very good. "There won't be any big reaction, except that the ears will steam and the face will turn red for a few hours." After hearing Snape's words, Moon imagined the consequences of drinking this potion. "This seems more like the Hogwarts Express." "Okay, Professor, I got it." Moon found the refreshing potion in the order pointed out by Snape. Snape probably knew that there were many young wizards suffering from colds, so he prepared a large jar of potion this time. Moon first tried the weight of the jar, then cast a levitation spell on the other party, and then went up to hold the jar and prepare to leave. While paying attention to the potion, Snape has been watching Moon's movements. When he saw that this little wizard could use the levitation spell easily, he couldn't help but show a hint of surprise in his eyes. Snape had heard Professor Flitwick talk about Moon's talent in spells, and he didn't care much at first. After all, many young wizards show their talent in spells every year. But when he saw that Moon could cast a levitation spell on such a heavy potion jar, he knew that he might be wrong. According to Moon's current learning progress, Snape knew that he would not be exposed to the levitation spell for more than a month. It was already good enough to make a pencil float, and the duration would not be very long, usually only a few seconds at most. But Moon's spells did not seem to be like this. Seeing Moon holding the medicine jar in one hand and walking to the door, Snape called him again. "You can bring more of this material next week. I know more spells than you think." Hearing Snape's voice, Moon subconsciously retracted his legs that were about to step out of the office. "Professor, you don't have to wait until next week. I have a lot now." When Moon entered this office, he found that Snape had already used a lot of batfish swim bladder powder and flame snail shell powder. And looking at the dosage that the other party had just added to the crucible, Moon knew that the remaining materials could not support Snape to make the same potion again. "A lot? How much is that?" Snape's expression became a little anxious. Seeing that Moon had just stretched out a finger, he eagerly guessed the answer. 1 ounce, too little, not enough." Snape was a little disgusted. But Moon shook his head. When he was about to explain, Snape spoke again. No? Is it 10 ounces? Moon shook his head again and gave up talking. Instead, he looked down at the large medicine jar containing the stimulant in his arms. There's about this jar. Hiss. Snape took a deep breath. The stimulant potion he prepared this time was completely prepared according to the dosage of 30 people for 3 days, about 500 ounces. Although the stimulant potion is heavier than the powdered fish bladder material, according to this ratio, Moon still has at least 300 ounces of potion materials. Thinking of this, Snape suddenly became more anxious. Give them all, I will give you a reasonable price, Professor, but I want some special spells that are not on the textbook. Seeing Snape's expression, Moon knew that the initiative to set the price was back in his hands. Hearing Moon's words, Snape did not hesitate this time. He waved his hand, and a piece of parchment on the desk flew to Moon. Block ears and block listening. This spell was created by me, and no one else knows it yet. Listening to Snape's introduction, Moon carefully looked at the detailed description of the spell on the parchment. This spell was originally created to give me an undisturbed environment for refining medicine. It can completely block all sounds from the outside world. After Snape finished speaking, Moon couldn't help but feel ecstatic. He was worrying about how to solve Montoya's keen hearing after his transformation, and now the answer actually flew directly into his hands. Professor, please wait a moment, I'll go get the potion ingredients, Moon said and quickly ran to the school infirmary, put down the refreshing potion, and turned around and ran back to the dormitory. He opened the suitcase under the bed and took out a large can of batfish mort powder and a small can of flame snail shell powder. The little witch Chris had already pre-made a lot of these materials on the Scarlet Moon, and Moon only brought a small part of them this time. How on earth did you get so many materials? This will allow me to try to improve the Wolfsbane hundreds of times. Snape did not continue to say the rest. Before he succeeded, he did not want more people to know what he was doing. It's not that much, actually. I gave some to Professor Sprout to make fertilizer. Fertilizer? Professor Snape's voice immediately became several degrees higher. This is a brand new potion material, how can it be used to make fertilizer? This is a huge waste. Moon had experienced Snape's roar once, so this time when he saw that the other party showed signs of an attack again, he avoided him from a distance. It was not until 5 minutes later that Snape seemed to be tired of talking, and Moon spoke carefully again. Professor, in fact, this material can not only be used to make fertilizer, but also as a snack for the giant squid in the Black Lake, thanks to the Big Brother Fatifit for the reward. Chapter 180, Collaboration with the Potions Professor. Professor Snape's roar lasted for another half an hour. He didn't stop even when he added materials to the crucible again. Well, tell me how much of this material is left. After chanting the stirring spell again and turning down the flame of the alcohol lamp, Snape looked at Moon again. There should be quite a lot, but if you still want it, you'll have to wait until next week. Next week again. Snape had heard this many times before, and he thought it was Moon's excuse. But Moon kept bringing out new materials, which broke his limit. Yes, Professor, if you can't use it here, then I can only go to the pharmacy in Diagon Alley. Moon had just heard Snape experimenting with a new potion. Although Moon hadn't heard the name of this potion, he knew that a few hundred ounces of the basic materials needed for a potion should be enough. And the materials he brought out now might have already saturated Snape's demand for this potion. So Moon had to consider other methods next. You want to sell potion materials in the pharmacy in Diagon Alley? Humph, give up. Snape was a little angry when he remembered that Moon had just said to give the materials to the giant squid as snacks. Now he heard that the little wizard in front of him had such a whimsical idea, and he couldn't help but sneer. Why? Moon asked subconsciously. Do you think those potion shops that have been open for hundreds of years will trust a newcomer, especially you are a first-year little wizard? As a famous British potion master, Snape knew very well that those old potion shops cherished their reputation very much. It was impossible to purchase any materials from an unknown little wizard. Maybe my materials are cheaper, Moon said with some luck. Oh, cheap, Snape sneered first, then spoke again. Cheap may mean counterfeit, illegal, and unknown to these businessmen. As long as you can't tell the source of the potion materials, how can they accept your things? After all, they can't afford such consequences. Moon never considered Snape's statement. He only thought that he could find a market quickly with the advantages of large quantity and low price, but now it seems that he was still a little delusional. Then I can go. Before Moon finished speaking, Snape's cold eyes had already glared at him. It's best not to go to that place. Even if your strength is much higher than that of students of the same grade, you can't go in and out there at will. Snape had obviously guessed the place Moon was talking about. Nocturne Alley. British wizards would go here when they deal with some shady materials. Is there no place in the British magic world to collect these potion materials? Hearing Moon's question, Snape showed a triumphant smile. Of course there's. You can find me to cooperate and sell it under my name. I believe those pharmacies will not refuse. Really? Professor, Moon showed a happy expression. He knew that Snape was a potion master praised by many professors. With him as a guarantor, there was no need to worry about the source of potion materials. Of course, but it must be agreed in advance, Snape said, his eyes drifting to the jar in Moon's arms. I won't pay you anything else for these 2 potion materials, just that one spell. Okay, Professor, I agree, Moon said and put the 2 potions on the table. He had never thought that Snape would give him a spell like block ears. Now not only is this spell very suitable for Moon at the moment, but now he has also secured a safer way to trade potion materials. This is a completely profitable business for Moon. You don't have other materials besides these 2, do you? Hearing Moon's straightforward answer again, Snape couldn't help but worry whether he agreed too hastily. Yes, there are some, but they are all licorice and the like. That's okay. Hearing Moon's answer, Snape nodded indifferently. He didn't care much about licorice, or even the materials in the Hogwarts herb greenhouse. Because one of the reasons why he agreed to join Dumbledore was that he could use these materials at will. Seeing that the potion in the crucible became unstable again, he picked up the brass stirring rod again and observed the changes in the potion closely. I don't have time now, and I can't spare my hands. I will give you the relevant certificate letter during the potion class on Friday, Snape said without raising his head. Thank you very much, Professor. Don't thank me. If you want to thank me, thank you for bringing 2 large jars of potion materials. In Snape's view, the transaction between him and Moon was just a fair deal, and each took what he needed. 2 large jars of potion materials in exchange for a certificate letter, for him, just offset the loss of this transaction. Okay, Professor, then I won't bother you to make potions. Noticing that Snape no longer had time to care about him, Moon immediately chose to say goodbye and leave. On the way back to the common room, Moon had been thinking about a new cooperation plan with Professor Snape. He didn't expect that this usually very strict potion professor would be so easy to talk to today. After returning this time, you should find a way to prepare more herbs, or you can also buy some from the Bailey Chamber of Commerce. Moon now has a basic understanding of the herbal materials in the 2 worlds. Because the social development of wizards and ordinary people in the world where the Venus Islands are located is far less advanced than the current world. A large number of magical plants, animals, and herbs have not been developed and utilized in large quantities, so the prices are cheaper than those in the Diagon Alley Pharmacy. In addition, Moon also has a voucher at the Bailey Chamber of Commerce that can be used to purchase all items at a 50% discount. If this voucher is counted, even if Moon only brings ordinary herbs from another world and then finds Diagon Alley to purchase them, there will be at least 3 to 4 times the profit. It seems that I must learn the invisible extension spell as soon as possible, otherwise there is only one suitcase and I can't put much in it. Since Snape agreed to help prove it, Moon has a complete and reliable channel for trading potion materials. However, every time he travels through the world, only the things he carries will follow. This greatly limits the possibility of Moon's subsequent expansion. If it doesn't work in the early stage, you can also bring some rare herbs, which will also bring in a lot of gold galleons, but I don't know if it will have any impact on Professor Snape. Moon pondered for a while, then shook his head. As a famous potion master in the British wizarding world, a few herbs should not be a problem for Professor Snape. After successfully finding a shortcut to change the stairs, Moon returned to the common room again through the password set by the fat lady. At this time, Harry and Ron were playing wizard chess. Since Dumbledore enlightened Harry last night, the little wizard had not thought about looking for the Mirror of Erased. But after Moon learned that Dumbledore wanted him to help Harry, he had been thinking about what kind of help the little wizard needed, and what abilities he had to help the other party. The Gryffindor common room was still as lively as usual. Ron's skills in playing wizard chess have become higher and higher, and no third-year wizard can beat him. Harry is even worse in front of him. Perhaps not wanting to be bullied by the chess pieces of wizard chess again, after seeing Moon come in, Harry hurriedly left the chessboard and came over to greet him. "How's Hermione? We wanted to go see her just now," But Madame Pomfrey refused. "Oh, don't be like that, come back quickly, Harry, I'm only 3 steps away from completing the final kill." After noticing that Harry had left, Ron made an almost pleading sound. But Harry had no intention of going back at all. "It should be ready soon. I just sent Professor Snape's newly brewed potion to him. He said the effect should be good." Moon was very happy now because he had found a market for the potion materials. After hearing Harry's question, he just answered casually. "Snape again." Ron was about to come over to pull Harry back, but when he heard Snape's name, he stopped where he was. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" Harry didn't say anything when he heard Snape's name, but his expression was a little solemn. "Oh, the problem is not small," Ron said and directly pulled the 2 little wizards to the wizard chessboard. "Wood just informed us that Snape will be the referee of the next Quidditch match. Harry and I are very worried." Hearing Ron say this, Moon knew what the 2 little wizards were worried about. After the last Quidditch match, Moon had locked on several professors through his memory ability, who were likely to have cast dark magic on Harry's broom at that time. Among them was Snape. But compared to the other professors, Harry and Ron were more willing to believe that it was Snape who did it at that time. "Don't worry, I guess it shouldn't be Professor Snape." After hearing Moon's words, the 2 little wizards looked over unconsciously, their eyes full of strong suspicion. "Why, Snape has been hostile to Harry since the beginning of the school year," Ron asked curiously. "Well, please think about it. If it was really Snape, would he choose to put himself in the most conspicuous position in the game?" Although Moon had only watched a Quidditch match once, he knew that the referee of the game was supervised by all the spectators on the field. If Snape was really the murderer, he would never choose such a position. "You make sense," Harry thought for a while and then reacted. As a member of the Quidditch team, he knew very well that compared to the referee, the murderer would rather hide in the messy and dense audience seats. After hearing that his friends all agreed, Ron's expression unconsciously fell. He had discussed with Harry for a long time when they were playing chess just now, how to deal with it if it was really Snape. And now Snape's suspicion was ruled out just by Moon's words, which made him feel that he had done useless work. If it's not him, who else could it be? It can't be Quirrell. Ron guessed that it was Quirrell, not because he had definite evidence, but because he didn't have a good impression of this professor. After all, no one would like a professor who carries so much garlic on him. It shouldn't be him. "I saw George and Fred conjure up a big snowball to tease him this morning." Harry would not doubt a professor because of his special habits. In his opinion, Quirrell was very timid and pitiful. He even went to help Quirrell after seeing him being bullied this morning. Harry didn't think that a professor who could be teased by students would be the dark wizard they were looking for. "Who should it be?" Ron complained helplessly. He was not good at thinking about things like this. "I don't know yet, but I think as long as the other party dares to make a move again in the Quidditch field, I will definitely be able to lock him." Harry's eyes became firm as he spoke. In his opinion, this was the best way at the moment. "No, you want to be a bait, just like playing chess with me." Ron understood Harry's idea instantly, and he couldn't help but worry. When he learned that Snape would be the referee of the next game, Ron suggested that Harry pretend to be unwell or break his leg to refuse to participate in this game. Now Harry actually chose to go on the field himself to lure the murderer to make a move again. Yes, if the other party doesn't make a move in the game, then he will definitely steal the Philosopher's Stone. "This is our second chance." Harry's little lion character was clearly revealed at this time. He even felt a little proud of himself for being able to participate in the professor's affairs. Ron swallowed unconsciously after hearing what Harry said. In his opinion, both methods were not feasible. If the murderer performed dark magic on the Quidditch field, then Harry would face the danger of falling from a height of several hundred meters. As for the Philosopher's Stone, they already knew that there was a particularly ferocious 3-headed dog guarding there, and even Snape was no match for it. "Harry, I think the Philosopher's Stone should be safe. Besides, this is not something we should worry about." "That's not the case, Ron. He has already done it to me, and you know that the Philosopher's Stone is very precious. It can turn any stone into gold and make wizards immortal. All dark wizards must want to get it." When Harry mentioned the Philosopher's Stone, Ron didn't feel anything, but when he heard the word dark wizard, he couldn't help but tremble. "But how can we defeat the dark wizards? We have to try. Think about it. We are not doing this for ourselves. It's Dumbledore's business." Moon didn't know why Harry was so concerned about Dumbledore's affairs. Anyway, After listening to the conversation between the two little wizards, he knew what kind of help Harry needed. However, fighting against dark wizards was beyond Moon's ability. He could still do his part to protect the Philosopher's Stone. Harry, I think if it's the Philosopher's Stone, you don't have to worry about it. Why? The murderer is already lurking in the school. He may steal it at any time, Harry asked in confusion. I know, but the defense level of the Philosopher's Stone is completely different from the original level. Even if the professors go in person, they may not succeed. Hearing Moon's confident words, Harry and Ron's curiosity was aroused. Do you know something, Moon? Can you reveal something? Moon shook his head and looked at the other party helplessly. I can only say that the protection level has been enhanced. Even the three-headed dog you are familiar with will become completely different in a few days, so you'd better not think about going to help guard it. In Moon's opinion, the current protection level has very few loopholes. He just said that the professors would not succeed, which was a euphemism. If someone really went to break in, he would at least suffer more serious injuries than Professor Snape. Is it so powerful now? Harry asked with some concern. Of course, perhaps letting the Dark Wizard break through himself is the best way to protect the Philosopher's Stone. Moon actually had some expectations now. Chapter 181 Rune Magic Circle. After listening to Moon's explanation about the enhanced protection level, the two young wizards had different reactions. After Ron heard that the three-headed dog would also become unusual, he unconsciously became nervous for the murderer. He had seen Fluffy when he was touring the castle at night. Just his size and appearance were enough to scare people. Harry, on the other hand, nodded lightly after listening to Moon's solemn instructions. Okay, I will try not to touch those protection levels, but if I really encounter a dark wizard, I will still find a way to stop him. Moon was very helpless. He knew that Harry was just like this, and it was difficult to change what he had determined. Okay, if you really need any help, you can tell me. Moon didn't know if this was what Dumbledore meant by help. But now that his good friend wanted to protect the Philosopher's Stone, Moon felt that he might be able to do something. When he woke up on Thursday morning, Moon began to study the Alchemy Enhancement Rune. This rune was the first one he came into contact with, and it came from the main part of the alchemy key. Through the alchemy notes of the dead magician, Moon knew that the main material of the alchemy key was a special meteorite. The magicians of the unbelievers added 3 magic circles with strengthening runes on it. Through actual observation and reading materials, Moon learned that the alchemy systems of the two worlds were not very different. This allowed him to use the information in the Hogwarts library to carefully distinguish and learn the alchemy creations of the other world. Each alchemy creation is covered with runes. Each rune contains unique magical energy and properties. Combining them according to certain rules and sequences can form a magic circle. The runes themselves have certain magical powers, but they are very limited. If you want them to exert more powerful and more complex magical energy, only magic circles can achieve it. However, the arrangement and combination of each magic circle is different, and the effects produced will not be different. The magic runes that occupy the main body will play a decisive role. 7 is really a magical number, Moon learned from the information in the library and the magic circle on the alchemy key. The simplest magic circle is usually composed of 7 runes, which is the simplest type of magic circle. Moon currently has only 3 runes, and these 3 runes cannot be effectively arranged and combined, so he has not mastered any magic circle yet. But this does not prevent Moon from using runes to strengthen the collar for Lu Wei. Runes themselves have tiny magical energy, and even if they are not connected in series by magic circles, they can still play a role. So now for Moon, he only needs to carve the strengthening runes on the wood of the collar to achieve this goal. Of course, rune engraving is not just about carving with a carving knife. When the level of the alchemist is not enough, the engraving of runes must recite the relevant spells to ensure that the runes are effective and have magic. In addition, rune engraving also has requirements for the material it carries. The material for engraving runes cannot have too many impurities and negative energy. Moon and Hagrid chose to use rosewood this time, which is the most basic material. Of course, if the runes are to form a magic circle, ordinary wood will not work. They cannot withstand such a huge magical energy and will inevitably fail. But if it's just runes, ordinary wood is fine. In addition, Moon also needs to master the ability to carve runes. Runes cannot be carved without any mistakes, so they must be successful in one stroke. If there are any omissions in the middle, it is very likely that the magical energy carried by the rune will not be retained. So if Moon wants to get the enhanced version of the collar, he must ensure that the runes carved cannot have any mistakes. What are you carving again? There was no one to disturb Moon in the common room in the morning, which was the perfect time for Moon to practice with concentration. However, just a little while after he started, a little witch appeared in the common room. This is an alchemical rune. Why are you back? Is your cold gone? After hearing Hermione's voice, Moon still didn't look up, and his eyes were fixed on the carving knife in his hand. Much better, I have to say Snape's medicine is very effective. After noticing Moon's focused expression, Hermione's voice became smaller and smaller. After she responded softly, she sat on the sofa next to her and waited quietly. Actually, Hermione's condition was under control last night, and she wanted to go back to the dormitory to catch up on the missed courses. But Madame Pomfrey stopped her and asked her to wait until this morning before leaving. Now, just after 6 o'clock, Hermione has anxiously appeared in front of the fireplace in the common room. Puff after blowing off the sawdust on the wood, Moon looked at the 32nd rune with satisfaction. This time he finally succeeded in one go. Even without a monocular, Moon could feel the weak magical energy on this small rune. Actually, you should rest more. There are no important courses these 2 days. After Moon admired his rune work, he looked up at Hermione. Forget it, I just didn't come back for a day, and you have already started studying the 6th grade knowledge. I can't imagine that if I was a few days later, would you be preparing to graduate? Hearing Hermione's ridicule, Moon smiled helplessly. How is that possible? It's just runes. You'll learn them as an elective course in the 3rd grade, don't lie to me. I've seen a little bit of the rune course in the 3rd grade. This course doesn't teach how to carve runes on wood. Moon knew that Hermione had the habit of previewing the content beyond the syllabus in advance, but he didn't expect that this little witch would also start to touch the content of the elective course. Does the rune elective course really not teach carving? Then what does it teach? Moon didn't know the content of the rune course and asked curiously. Of course, just knowing the runes is enough. After all, this course is very complicated. Hermione sighed helplessly when she said this. She knew how terrible Moon's memory ability was, so if it was just a simple recognition of runes, it would be almost no pressure for Moon. But the same content is completely different for others. Ancient runes have their own symbol system and grammatical rules. Not only are there a large number of them, but the meaning of each word will change according to the context and writing method. In addition, alchemical runes are not like ordinary text knowledge. They are often abstract and difficult to understand magic symbols. Moreover, there are also interrelated and evolving relationships between these symbols, which require the young wizard to sort out clearly. Therefore, this course is a huge test for students' memory. I must work harder, otherwise I will be left far behind by you. After Hermione finished speaking, she ran back to the dormitory and took out the textbooks to study. When she was about to open the book to study, she couldn't help but look up at Moon curiously. Why are you studying alchemy? Are you going to make some new inventions? After such a long time together, Hermione has a deep understanding of Moon's learning habits. She knows that the young wizard in front of her usually only learns relevant magic knowledge when there is a practical need. Then, in the process of practice, he constantly tests the correctness of the knowledge he has learned until he finally masters it. Now seeing Moon carving alchemical runes, Hermione couldn't help but ask. Nothing, just to make a collar for a big dog. Although Moon did not clearly point out the identity of the big dog. But Hermione subconsciously thought of the 3-headed big dog guarding the trapdoor. Is it time to strengthen protection again? Chapter 182 Dumbledore's Intention. Hermione guessed what Moon was doing with just one sentence. I can't imagine which dark wizard would come to Hogwarts to steal the Philosopher's Stone. Hermione had seen the 3-headed dog when she first visited the castle at night. She knew very well that Fluffy was definitely not something that ordinary wizards could deal with. Even Snape would be bitten, so others would have no chance of winning. Now if Fluffy were strengthened, the dark wizard might not even be able to pass the first level, let alone steal the Philosopher's Stone. Actually, I'm also very curious. I really hope that the other party can try every level. After doing so much, Moon now really wants to know how strong the protection of the level can be. If it is really possible, he thinks that he can protect the Scarlet Moon in the same way in another world. Or he can use these levels to create a quiet and comfortable place for himself to study magic. After chatting with Hermione, Moon continued to try to carve magic runes. Before breakfast, he experimented with 100 sets of strengthening runes and succeeded in 73 sets. This success rate is not low for other magicians, but Moon wants to pursue more than that. So he practiced rune carving for the whole day. Even when he was in flying class, Moon was riding on a broom and practicing carving runes attentively. Harry Potter. If you do such dangerous actions again, I can only ask Professor McGonagall for your punishment. Shortly after the class started, Madame Hooch's shout resounded throughout the venue. Everyone was very quiet in the flying class, only Harry was very abnormal today. He rushed to the sky again and again, and then let go of his hands and dived from the sky, as if he was practicing a certain action. Professor, I'm just practicing. Practice? How can someone practice falling from a broom? Madame Hooch didn't understand it at all, but Ron and Moon, who were not far away, knew Harry's little thoughts very well. It seems that he really wants to catch the murderer in the next Quidditch game. Ron couldn't help but worry a little now. He just saw Harry diving, which was really thrilling and exciting. Don't worry, Harry's flying skills are far better than those of senior students. Moon knew Harry better than anyone else. He knew that most of the growth in the wizard bar on the little wizard's head came from his flying talent. Even with the best flying broom, Harry could do more thrilling actions than that. I know that, but what if a dark wizard really attacks Harry? Hearing Ron's words, Moon couldn't help but ponder. He could still remember the scene of the last Quidditch match very clearly. If the dark wizard really planned to do it again, it would likely lead to a serious accident. How about we prepare a flying carpet? In this way, even if Harry falls, we can catch him. Last time Harry almost fell off the flying broom, Moon thought of using the sheet with color-changing magic to cast the levitation spell to catch Harry. Even though Moon knew that his levitation spell was not powerful enough, as long as there was a professor who could understand Moon's intention and then take over the magical control of the sheet, accidents could naturally be avoided. However, after Moon studied alchemy, he found a better way to solve this problem. The flying carpet. Another flying tool used by wizards. This alchemical item not only has a very stable flying speed, but also has a large area, which will increase the success rate of catching Harry falling from the sky. No, Moon, the flying carpet has been banned by the Ministry of Magic in the UK, so it is impossible to buy it. Why? I think the magic carpet is very suitable for flying. Seeing Moon and Ron chatting, Hermione also flew over. Even after Ron mentioned the Ministry of Magic's ban, she couldn't help but complain. The Ministry of Magic should consider the needs of every wizard, instead of prohibiting all wizards from using it because of a law. I know that's the case, but the statute of secrecy is the highest level after all. Hermione explained the many advantages of the magic carpet. Soft, comfortable, stable, and will not produce large bumps and shakes during the flight. But these are not as good as a ban from the Ministry of Magic. In Ron's explanation, Moon also figured out the reason why the Ministry of Magic did not allow the flying carpet to circulate in the UK. In the Ministry of Magic's Register of Prohibited Magical Items, flying carpets are defined as Muggle handicrafts, and the British Ministry of Magic prohibits wizards from casting magic on Muggle items. Because such items can easily fall into the hands of Muggles, they may expose the existence of the magical world and violate the statute of secrecy. In addition, flying carpets are more conspicuous when flying and are difficult to hide as easily as flying brooms. In areas with dense Muggle populations such as the UK, the use of flying carpets increases the risk of being discovered by Muggles, thus threatening the statute of secrecy in the magical world. So as long as the statute of secrecy exists, flying carpets will never be able to enter the UK. Ron's words all came from his father's discussion at the dinner table. Moon knew that since this employee working in the Department of Prohibition of the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts thought so, it would be almost impossible to buy a magic carpet in the UK. But since you can't buy it, it doesn't mean you can't do it. After listening to Hermione's introduction of so many advantages of magic carpets, Moon felt more and more that he also needed a flying tool in another world. Of course, the best choice of flying tool at this stage is to be able to buy a flying broom after making money. As for the future, you can try to make a magic carpet or modify it, and then take it to another world. It is best to ensure comfort while having the advantage of speed, which is the most suitable flying tool. Anyway, for Moon, there is no confidentiality law in the other world, so he can fly however he wants. Harry was finally stopped by Ms. Hotch from experimenting with difficult flying movements. This made him inevitably a little disappointed. However, when the class was about to end, Harry saw Hagrid coming and immediately regained his spirits. "What's wrong?" "Harry, I just saw you flying very well," Hagrid saw Harry's high-altitude flight on the way to the castle. He originally wanted to praise him, but when he saw Harry's abnormal expression, he became a little confused. Harry didn't say anything. Ron explained it to the side, and Hagrid finally understood it. "Oh, actually Ms. Hotch did a good job, Harry. This is not something you should participate in. Stop it." Of course, Harry would not give up his plan because of Hagrid's words. He was just very curious about why Hagrid came to the castle. "I'm looking for Moon. Dumbledore has agreed to that." After Hagrid finished speaking, several young wizards looked at Moon in surprise. Under the curious eyes of Harry and Hermione, Moon followed Hagrid to the castle. The place they were going to this time was in the corridor on the 4th floor of the castle, where the big dog Fluffy was guarding. "I really didn't expect Dumbledore to agree without thinking. I think he must trust you very much." For Hagrid, Dumbledore's words were more effective than any instructions. And now that Dumbledore could so readily agree to Moon's meeting with Fluffy, all the doubts in Hagrid's heart dissipated. But now that he saw Moon, he was a little worried. He was afraid that if there were really dark wizards who knew that Moon was also involved in the design of these protective levels, would he be in danger? "By the way, you must keep this matter secret and don't tell others, otherwise it is very likely that something bad will happen." As the person in charge of one of the guard levels, Hagrid knew very well the preciousness of the Philosopher's Stone. So he knew that the dark wizards would definitely try their best to pass the level and steal the Philosopher's Stone. Moon has now been involved in this matter, so he will face corresponding danger. Don't worry, except for Hermione and Harry who can vaguely guess a little, no one else knows that I have anything to do with this matter. Moon trusts these new friends very much. In addition to intuition, the magical magic also prompted him to make such a judgment. After studying alchemy, Moon already knew that the Pen of Acceptance and the Book of Admission would never go wrong. Therefore, the young wizards who have just entered school have the lowest suspicion. In addition, the magic strength of the first-year wizards is at the bottom of Hogwarts. This makes it almost impossible for the dark wizards to choose first-year students as substitutes. Of course, in addition to this speculation, the most important thing from Moon's judgment is that he can see clearly the strength of each person. Moon guessed that since the dark wizard wanted to steal the Philosopher's Stone in Hogwarts, his magic strength should be at least 3 levels. Otherwise, it would be impossible to escape the investigation of the professors of Hogwarts, not to mention Dumbledore, whose strength is unfathomable. In Hogwarts, there are many wizards with more than 3 levels of strength, but no junior wizard can do it. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have told Harry and them about Fluffy's existence. After hearing that Harry and Hermione had already guessed something, Hagrid couldn't help but blame himself. After the last Quidditch game, he accidentally said the names of Fluffy and Nicholas Flamel. This made the young wizards guess the real object guarded by Hogwarts. Don't say that, Hagrid. I think this secret will be leaked sooner or later. The more Moon got involved in the matter of guarding the Philosopher's Stone in the school, the more he felt that Dumbledore seemed to do this on purpose. After all, if you really want to protect something, you can hide it and not let anyone know. Moon felt that Dumbledore definitely had the ability to do this. But the headmaster not only did not do this, but announced at the opening ceremony, the corridor on the right side of the 4th floor of the castle cannot be approached. This is obviously telling everyone that there is something extraordinary there. After this matter was announced, it has aroused everyone's curiosity, especially the students in the school. After all, young wizards of this age are the most curious. How could it be? Dumbledore also asked me to keep it a secret that you came to make a collar for Fluffy. Hagrid didn't think of this level. He always thought that the school's confidentiality work was done well. Of course, it may also be that the trust in Dumbledore made the Forbidden Forest administrator have a little illusion. This time Moon did not respond. In his opinion, he was allowed to participate in this matter because he had the same idea as Dumbledore. That is, let the murderer go through the level and test the strength of this dark wizard. Moon didn't know if Dumbledore had other deeper ideas. But according to all the current events, the two people should have the same idea about testing dark wizards. Moon was actually very curious. Under his suggestion, the increased strength of the protection level could stop the dark wizard. If it could, he could set up the same level in another world to create a quiet and comfortable magic learning environment for himself. After all, Moon can now carry things back to another world. It is very convenient to bring the Devil's Snare and Spore Powder. Of course, it is not possible to bring Fluffy now, but there may be a chance in the future. Of course, even if it is not possible, other ferocious animals can be used instead. Perhaps the giant squid is more suitable. When Moon was still thinking about how to build a defense for his future magic castle, the two had already walked to the stairs leading to the corridor on the 4th floor. Professor Quirrell? Why are you here? Hagrid's loud voice suddenly brought Moon back to reality. He looked at Quirrell, who suddenly appeared in the corridor with some curiosity. Oh, hello Hagrid, I'm just looking around. After Professor Quirrell responded, he looked at Moon, who was following Hagrid in surprise, and then immediately added another sentence. You know, there was a giant monster there, and then some accidents happened, so I think I might be able to help. Don't worry, the current defense level is completely different from before. When Hagrid wanted to continue speaking, his moleskin coat was pulled hard by Moon. What's different? Quirrell's eyes showed a hint of suspicion. Oh, nothing. I think Dumbledore must have made other arrangements. Really? Then I'm relieved. After Quirrell finished speaking, he walked downstairs, while Hagrid looked down at Moon with some suspicion. Why do you doubt Professor Quirrell? He's not very courageous. Hagrid didn't think that the timid Professor Quirrell would be a dark wizard. In his opinion, the other party didn't have this ability at all. Did you notice that Professor Quirrell didn't stutter when you called him at the beginning? Moon had doubts about several professors on the list he pushed out that day. It's just that he knew a few of them better, such as Professor Flitwick and Professor Snape. Moon has ruled out a lot of suspicions about these two. The rest are Professor Burbage, who teaches Muggle studies, Professor Kettleburn, who teaches magical animals, Ms. Pants, the librarian, and Professor Quirrell, who just appeared. Moon didn't know much about these professors, so he couldn't be sure. But now it seems that Professor Quirrell is more suspicious than other professors. Did he? Maybe. Hagrid didn't notice the change in Quirrell's way of speaking. But Moon remembered it very clearly. In addition to his good memory, more importantly, he had such an experience once before. It was after he got rid of the troll on Halloween, and he didn't stutter when Professor Quirrell asked him about the incident. In addition, it is now dinner time at school. Most people are gathered in the auditorium or the staff lounge. And this professor actually ran to the 4th floor, which inevitably makes people suspicious. Well, don't think about it, Fluffy should be waiting anxiously. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, Snape's Letter of Certification. When Moon returned to the common room that night, Hermione and the others could not wait to surround him. Is the three-headed dog very powerful? Harry ran over to ask first. Ever since he knew that a dark wizard wanted to draw the Philosopher's Stone, this little wizard has been more concerned than anyone else. It is indeed very powerful, Moon simply replied, and walked to the sofa in front of the fireplace with the materials. That's for sure, even Snape is no match for it. Ron followed suit. However, the powerful thing that Moon said to them was completely different. When Moon followed Hagrid to see Fluffy this time, he was also shocked by the size and appearance of the big dog at first. He had never seen a dog as tall as Hagrid, especially the 3 dog heads growing side by side on the dog's neck. Moon originally thought that it might be enough to make a collar. But he found that the neck that carried the 3 dog heads was very thick, and now he couldn't find suitable wood at all, so he could only make 3. Of course, in addition to this point, which was beyond Moon's imagination, the fact that the 3-headed dog showed no ferocity after seeing him was also incomprehensible to Moon. When Lu Wei saw Moon, he first bared his teeth, but it did not last for more than 2 seconds. Lu Wei's eyes changed from fierce to happy. Then he couldn't help wanting to get closer to Moon. The tongues in the 3 dogs' mouths were stretched out so long that it became extremely difficult for Moon to avoid them. So before coming back, Moon had to wash his face in the bathroom for a long time. Yes, I think ordinary wizards can't avoid its 3 heads attacking at the same time. Moon had practiced the same attack method with a giant squid in the Black Lake. At that time, the different arms of the giant squid attacked him in sequence, and Moon was completely unable to resist. Lu Wei's 3 heads attacked from different directions at the same time, which made Moon want to avoid his dog tongues, and there was no way at all. Fortunately, Hagrid finally controlled Lu Wei's swaying dog head with his size advantage, so that Moon could measure the size of the collar. After explaining the first meeting with Fluffy, the little wizards dispersed to do their own things. Moon took the newly acquired wood and began to prepare to make a collar. The process of making a color is not very complicated. The only thing to pay attention to is to stay focused when carving the runes and not be disturbed by anyone. Although the common room is noisy, it is no different for Moon now. Close your ears and block your ears. This spell that Professor Snape used to ensure that he would not be disturbed when refining potions can be used by Moon to test it now. Although Moon has just learned this spell not long ago, with the blessing of the old willow wand, Moon's effect of casting this spell can last for an hour. This allows him to no longer worry about being affected by various noisy environments and affecting his studies and making collars. However, the environment can be controlled by magic, but the workload is now increased. Fluffy's huge size and the super hard rosewood selected by Hagrid, which is hundreds of years old, have increased the difficulty of Moon's production. Moon had originally planned to make the finished product this week, but now it seems that it would be great if he could succeed before Christmas. Although there were many changes, it was not impossible for Moon to overcome them. The puffy collar to be made, although not strictly an alchemical item. But for Moon, it can lay a good foundation for his subsequent study of alchemy. Time came to Friday. Snape's potion improvement experiment was still ongoing. Because the object of the experiment was a high-level potion such as Wolfsbane potion, Snape had to distract himself and take time to return to the office during class to observe the potion. Although everyone didn't know what happened, they would still be inexplicably happy to see the professor leave during class. When the bell rang, Snape took out a letter from his textbook and walked quickly towards Moon. Neville was still carefully recording the potion refining. Hearing Snape's footsteps getting closer, he subconsciously stopped writing. Just when the little wizard was worried about being punished, Snape's cold voice sounded above his head. Go to the pharmacy upstairs, Slug will help you solve all your problems. Snape was as cold as ever. After seeing Moon take the envelope, he turned around and left the classroom quickly with his cloak fluttering without looking back. Pharmacy. What is this? Ron, who was sitting in the back row, was worried that Snape would deliberately make trouble after class. But seeing that the other party left after throwing a letter, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and then stood up and looked up at the yellow envelope in Moon's hand. This is the business I did with Professor Snape. Moon was also very happy at this time. Ever since Snape promised to give him a letter of certification, he has been waiting for this moment. Now that the letter of certification is in hand, Moon is full of confidence in the next business of potion materials. So what you said is true. Ron heard Moon explain this on Monday, but he didn't believe it at the time. In his opinion, the age of 11 is the time when you need to ask your parents for money. But Moon not only sold wood carvings alone before school started, but also saved enough tuition. Now he has established a relationship with his school's potion professor and even started a business. This made him feel incredible and curious about the content of Moon's business. Slug and Gig's Pharmacy, I know it, it's on the corner of the street in Diagon Alley. The location is very conspicuous. Hermione also came over curiously at this time. After seeing the words on the envelope, she immediately recalled the specific location and appearance of the pharmacy. This pharmacy seems to be the only supplier of potion materials in Hogwarts. It has always had a very good relationship with the school's potion professor. Charlie and Percy bought their potion materials here. Ron's knowledge of this pharmacy came from the oral narration of his two more reliable brothers. Moon, on the other hand, only remembered the location and sign of this store, and didn't know anything else. Because first-year wizards don't need to buy any potion materials, he didn't step into this pharmacy before school started. But now that he is going to do business with the other party, Moon naturally hopes to learn more about it. After asking Ron, Moon learned that this pharmacy has a history of hundreds of years in Diagon Alley. The shop owners were originally a couple, and later reached a cooperative relationship with Hogwarts. This shop not only sells the potion materials needed by young wizards, but also provides agency services for the materials produced by the school greenhouse. So your business is to trade with the pharmacy? Yes, I plan to visit this pharmacy during Christmas. Moon did not give accurate information about the business content. In addition to ensuring that his secrets are not leaked, Moon has not yet determined what materials to bring. Now he has not learned the invisible extension charm. He also does not know what kind of potion materials this pharmacy needs, so he feels it is necessary to go and find out first. So you are also going to leave school for Christmas? Hermione had already guessed that Moon did not have any relatives in the UK. And now the little wizard in front of him not only has to leave school, but also has become a business partner with the potion professor. He's going to do business in the largest pharmacy in Diagon Alley during Christmas, which makes Hermione more curious. Why do I feel like there are endless secrets about you? Moon has actually been thinking about the issue of going out during Christmas these past 2 days. In addition to avoiding having his secrets discovered by others, Moon also plans to visit Uncle Gaia during Christmas and finalize a purchasing agreement with the pharmacy. This will lay a good foundation for purchasing Muggle items or selling materials for another world. As for wanting to dig out the secrets about himself, Moon certainly wouldn't let Hermione get her wish. When he was thinking about how to perfunctorily deal with this little witch, Malfoy, who is not far away, interrupted everyone's conversation. You, a poor guy who can only take out copper coins when exchanging gold and gold galleons at Gringotts, actually want to do business. Chapter 184 Bringing Bengbeng Home. Malfoy's arrogant attitude has actually been restrained recently. Ever since he was petrified by Moon on the stairs and lost a lot of house points for Slytherin, Malfoy no longer dared to cause trouble to Moon, and he was not as arrogant to Harry and Ron as before. But today, when he found that Snape's attitude towards Moon was completely different, Malfoy felt as if his cake had been touched. Now in school, the only thing that allows Malfoy to maintain his arrogance is Snape's special care, in addition to his prominent family background. But what happened today made Malfoy wonder why Snape showed such kindness to Little Lion. Don't tell me you picked 2 dandelions from the wild and planned to sell them to Slug and Gigg's pharmacy. Malfoy's verbal attack continued. Just now, the little lions were talking excitedly and their voices were inevitably a little louder, and Malfoy also heard the name of the pharmacy. Malfoy, don't underestimate me. Moon is a member of Professor Sprout's Herb Club, Hermione retorted directly after hearing Malfoy's words. And the expression on her face was very fierce, like a little lion about to explode. Malfoy was stunned for a moment. He never thought that Hermione would be so tough today. Not only Malfoy was surprised, but Ron and Harry were also curious about Hermione's abnormal behavior today. Huh? Herb Club? Did you pick the herbs, but wanted to steal the herbs in the club to sell? Hearing that Malfoy was getting more and more outrageous, Moon no longer indulged him. Stopping other friends who wanted to talk again, Moon walked directly towards him. Actually, I don't mind another detention, Moon said while pulling out his wand. Malfoy never thought that Moon didn't intend to defend himself, but went straight into combat mode. What are you going to do? Goyle, Crabbe. Malfoy unconsciously took 2 steps back and kept calling his followers. But the 2 little snakes, who were taller than him, ran out of the classroom after seeing Moon take out his wand. Last time, Moon was able to hit Malfoy despite Snape's obstruction, which made them very clear that they would not be his opponent at all. Don't be so scared, I just improved a lot in spells compared to some time ago, and I want to find someone to test it, Moon said, staring at the other party with burning eyes. The little wizard was frightened and his face turned pale. Malfoy didn't have much courage, especially after knowing that Moon's strength was far superior to his. He didn't even dare to take out his wand now. Moon Scarlett. What are you going to do? When Moon forced Malfoy into a corner, Snape's voice rang again. Goyle and Crabbe did not run away after leaving, but went directly to Snape. Nothing, Professor, Malfoy said. I don't know how to do business, and wants to teach me. I'm asking him for advice, Moon said and smiled warmly at Snape. When Malfoy saw the savior coming, he immediately ran behind Snape. Professor, it's him. Stop talking. Do you want to be petrified again? Snape had already seen Moon's spell power when he was refining the potion last night. Although he only saw Moon's floating spell, the power and duration of the spell were completely different from what a first-year wizard could master. This made Snape very clear that a first-year Malfoy would not be Moon's opponent at all, even with Goyle and Crabbe. This is really refreshing. Ron became very excited after watching Snape lead Malfoy and the others away. This was the first time he saw Malfoy being humiliated, and he couldn't help but show admiration when he saw Moon. Moon didn't feel anything. Since he dealt with the 2 adult wizards of the Unbelievers, Moon no longer had any interest in bullying the young wizards of the same grade. If Malfoy hadn't taken the initiative to provoke him today, he wouldn't have scared the other party. I just hope he can learn a lesson and don't provoke me next time, Moon said indifferently. I don't think it's likely. He was bullied this time, so maybe he will ask his father for help. The Weasley family knew the Malfoy family very well. Although they were both pure-blood families, the relationship between the 2 families had never been very good, and even the parents often fought when they met. Because they were familiar enough, Ron was able to roughly guess Malfoy's next plan. Is Malfoy's father very powerful? Moon didn't know the level of strength of the Malfoy family in the British wizarding world, and couldn't help but be curious. Not very powerful, but they are likely to mess up your business. Through Ron's explanation, Moon knew that the Malfoy family had a good relationship with the current Minister of Magic through political donations. And their business was not small, and even involved some magic potion transactions. Is that all? Then it shouldn't be a big problem. If it was just business competition, Moon was not afraid of any family in the British wizarding world. After all, he controlled all the cheap materials in another entire magical world. There were even various rare materials that no longer existed in this world. These were all resources that Moon controlled alone. This small storm in the potions class had no effect on Moon. He still followed his plan, studying ancient magic every morning, fighting with giant squids in the afternoon, and making collars at night. On Saturday, Moon received an invitation from Cedric to observe and learn the preliminary refining process of the little, living, hell potion. The refining of this potion will last for a month. During this period, Cedric must ensure that there will be no mistakes, which is a big challenge for him. It was also on this day that Moon got Cedric's second-year potion textbook. There are many methods of refining potions for treating various injuries, which is a good supplement to Moon's current knowledge of potions. After finishing the sparring with a giant squid on Sunday night, Moon returned to the dormitory and packed up the various items he needed to carry this time. The invisibility cloak was put in the suitcase early, and with it was the traceless flower sachet. This was the secret weapon that Moon successfully made after getting the materials with the approval of Professor Sprout yesterday. In addition, there is also a new version of the flame snail fertilizer formula. Through observation for several consecutive days this week, Moon found that the new version of the fertilizer is very effective. Not only can ordinary crops adapt, but it also contains a lot of magical energy. This shortens the growth time of crops by half. The formula must be kept well and handed over to Hall and others when we go back. Now that the food problem has been initially solved, Moon does not plan to continue to spend energy on this matter. It is a proper arrangement to let Hall and others try the experiment themselves. In addition, there are 15 bottles of water lily fungus spore powder. This is because Cedric couldn't handle these little things, so he forced a few bottles when refining medicine. For Moon, these little things are of course the more the better, so he accepted them all. In addition, there are monocular glasses and magic wands. Of course, the most important thing is Bengbeng. In order to make this little guy live comfortably in another world, Moon specially put its treehouse into the suitcase. Chi, how are we going? Hold my hand in a while, and we will be there after we wake up. Chi, I like sleeping. Bengbeng was not so curious. After learning that he only needed to fall asleep, he rolled up into a ball and stuffed himself into Moon's hand. After midnight. For Moon, this return was still the same as usual. But Bengbeng seemed to be a little uncomfortable. When he reappeared in the room on the Scarlet Moon, Bengbeng stood up shakily and leaned on Moon's hand for a long time. Chi, uncomfortable. It was not until 10 minutes later that the little guy regained some spirit. Could it be that I brought back a high-level creature and it would cause adverse reactions to the other party? Moon couldn't help but doubt it. He still remembered that he brought back a spider last time. At that time, the spider didn't feel any discomfort and jumped directly from his palm and drilled into the gap of the deck. After a while, seeing Bengbeng curiously looking around the surrounding environment, Moon's worries gradually disappeared. Maybe I can bring other creatures to try next time. Xilin was still guarding the room as usual. He had just been watching Moon, who had returned. Especially the new black and strange creature made Xilin even more suspicious. What is this? Seeing Bengbeng already rummaging around in the room, Xilin came over and asked curiously. Oh, I forgot to introduce him. He is a new friend I met when I was learning magic. Friend? Xilin was still a little bit unbelievable when he heard Moon say that. He didn't remember that Moon had the habit of making friends with animals. That's right, don't underestimate Bengbeng. It is a very magical creature. Hearing Moon say the word magical creature, Xilin understood. He knew that many magicians had contractual relationships with magical creatures, but it was the first time he saw such a small magical creature. What can it do? Can it spit fire or spit water? Xilin's understanding of magical creatures still stayed on the fire dragon, and the huge creature left a deep impression on him. It can't do these, Moon explained, and suddenly thought of something and whispered to Xilin. Tell everyone quietly to keep an eye on their purses. After searching the entire room, Bengbeng's spirits were almost restored. And it also accurately found the location of Moon's cash box. It's not that big here. After discovering that many layers of anti-theft spells were cast on the cash box, Bengbeng found Moon with a dejected look. He still remembered that Moon told him that his home was very big. This is just a small room on the ship. You can go outside and take a look. The whole ship is your territory. Hearing Moon say this, Bengbeng's eyes lit up instantly, and then he couldn't wait to run towards the door. Moon followed closely, fearing that some people who didn't know Bengbeng would cause him harm. Of course, the most important thing is to ensure that this little guy will not steal other people's things. It's so big. After just running all over the deck, Bengbeng was a little tired and collapsed at Moon's feet. There are 3 more floors below. If you like, you can find a room on the 3rd floor as your small warehouse. Really? Of course. After hearing Moon's agreement, Bengbeng instantly revived with full health and ran quickly towards the deck passage. Small warehouse? What does that mean? Xilin had been following behind Moon. He was curious when he heard that a separate room would be assigned to this strange magical creature as a warehouse. Oh, Bengbeng is actually a very good expert in getting rich, and he is also good at looking after the house. Moon knew Bengbeng's ability to get rich very well. He guessed that this little guy should have more valuable items on him than he did. Seeing that Xilin didn't understand, Moon explained to him how Bengbeng made his fortune. It's amazing that there are magical creatures that can steal and make money on their own, because the magicians in this world have invested most of their energy in things related to war. This leads to them paying more attention to and being more willing to sign contracts with magical creatures with combat capabilities. This also gives ordinary people like Xilin the illusion that magical creatures are all combat creatures. Of course, if one day we are really poor and can't even afford to eat, maybe opening the door of this small warehouse will allow all of us to get through the difficult times. Hearing what Moon said, Xilin's eyes lit up instantly. 1 warehouse is not enough, maybe we can give it 2 more. Although Moon has renovated the Scarlet Moon, the vacancy rate of the rooms is still very high. Now that there is a money-making expert, Xilin naturally thinks that it can be reasonably allocated. Moon is fine with this proposal. Anyway, as long as Bengbeng needs it, he will agree. After Bengbeng went to explore the cabin, the two returned to the small room again. You brought back so many things this time. What are you going to do? Xilin asked curiously as he watched Moon take out various items from the suitcase one by one. He still remembered very clearly that Moon brought back a lot of items when he returned last time. Among them were materials for making paper and printing, which could make everyone crazy. Yes, some of them are for my own use, but this formula may be used by us next time. It can shorten the growth time of crops by half. Of course, what Moon gave Xilin was the formula for the flame snail fertilizer. Half. Are you sure? Yes, I have tested it. Hearing what Moon said, Xilin immediately returned the formula to Moon. You have not experienced war, so you don't know how precious this thing is. It is far beyond your imagination, and it is likely to alarm the top leaders of the Federation or the Empire. Xilin knew very well the importance of food in a war. And now that Moon has taken out such a thing, it can completely change the direction of all wars. This made him excited, but he also knew that he might not be able to preserve this information with his own ability. Chapter 185, The banquet is over, prepare for battle. Moon expressed his understanding of Xilin's caution. Especially after the other party explained the importance of the new fertilizer formula, Moon directly cast a fire spell, and ignited the parchment in his hand. Xilin was about to persuade him, but Moon waved his hand and pointed to his head. Don't worry, it's all here. Xilin had long known about Moon's memory ability. Seeing the parchment was completely burned, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It's best to remember it in your mind. Although this kind of thing is not as magical as magic, it is enough for many people to remember it. Don't worry, as long as we find a place that belongs to us, we can be completely self-sufficient and don't have to worry about any forces. Moon is very self-aware of his magical strength. He knows that with his current ability, he can't stop the war at all. So he just wants to make the people around him live a better life. It's enough to do this. That's right, then we don't have to look at the Bailey Chamber of Commerce anymore. Xilin actually can't stand the people of the Bailey family, especially the mutual calculations between relatives. Such things make him feel chilled. Don't worry, I will ask them to leave tomorrow, and we can set off for Xinjiang Island the day after tomorrow. All the things that Moon had done in Mayor's Castle were over, and he didn't want to get involved in the Bailey family's intrigue, so leaving as soon as possible was the best policy. But, have you figured out how to deal with Montoya? When the Wizard of the Faithless returned to intercept the Scarlet Moon, Zara knew that there would definitely be a conflict between the two sides. And before Moon left this time, he also said that he would find a way to deal with the other party, but Zara is still a little worried now. He has learned about Montoya's strength from the two captured magicians. Montoya is already the head of the Faithless organization on Salmon Island, which is equivalent to the position of Major or Lieutenant Colonel among the spellcasters of the Gracia Federation. Such people are the magical forces in the Federation that can independently guard a city. Moon is only 11 years old now, and has been exposed to magic for less than a year. Such a strength comparison makes Zara very uneasy. Don't worry, I have prepared a lot of good things for him, and we can completely get rid of the other party tomorrow night. The next day, when the two heads of the Bailey family heard that Moon was about to leave, they held a grand dinner that night. Everyone on the Scarlet Moon was invited to disembark. The room where the dinner was held was wider than the Hogwarts Hall, and the decorations were extremely luxurious. Although there was no magic embellishment, there were still many rare objects that ordinary people could hardly see displayed around. Exquisite handmade armor, lion fur, huge deer antlers. Bengbeng had been squatting on Moon's shoulder. Since entering the hall, he had been curiously looking around. Especially seeing the silver tableware on the dining table and the golden decorations hanging on the wall, the little guy became restless unconsciously. At the dinner, Ryan Bailey had been accompanying Moon, constantly explaining the customs and practices of the Venus Islands. However, between the words, he was also implicitly asking about Moon's origins and the master of Moon's magic. As a famous wizard in the Venus Islands, he did not believe that such a young magic genius would suddenly appear, and there was no news about him before. However, all of these words of Ryan Bailey were evaded by Moon with "I have a mysterious teacher." If the other party asked again, it was because my teacher did not allow me to reveal his origins. In short, Moon guarded his secrets very tightly. Even in the face of various toasts deliberately arranged by Ryan Bailey, Moon cleverly used transfiguration to resolve the possibility of a hangover. Wine turns into water. This is the magic that Moon learned in the transfiguration class last week, and it just came in handy now. As for the other person in charge of the Mayor's Castle, Lynn Bailey. After being rejected by Moon several times, she set her sights on Aunt Daisy and Sophia. With her excellent communication skills, Lynn made Moon's relatives very happy. She even found out a lot of Moon's personal affairs. After learning that Moon had not made an engagement with anyone, the female head of the Bailey Chamber of Commerce showed a look of joy in her eyes. However, all of this was seen by Moon, who drank a lot of clear water. After the banquet, Moon was carried by Xilin out of the Mayor's Castle. After being away from the sight of all the Bailey family members, Hall and Lance were arranged to take care of everyone and return to the ship, and the two of them immediately ran towards the forest in the distance. Because it was not clear how much power the unbelievers had behind them, and in order to ensure the safety of his family, Moon did not plan to confront the other party directly this time. Using the Bailey family's banquet tonight as a cover, secretly dealing with Montoya is obviously the best way. After arriving in the depths of the woods, Anton, Ryan Bailey's personal attendant, had already led 2 horses and waited here. "Sir Scarlett, if you need, I can go with you to deal with Montoya." Moon didn't know why Anton was so active, but this battle would inevitably involve a lot of his privacy, so Moon could only refuse. "No, I hope you can go back and stay with Ryan Bailey. Don't let him know anything. This is the safest choice for you and me." As the closest friend he met in the Mayor's Castle, Moon certainly didn't want him to get into trouble. Now he had to deal with a magician of unknown strength, and the Bailey family was deeply involved with the other party. If there was any accident, Anton would be in danger. "Okay, I'll follow your orders." Anton wanted to say something else, but seeing Moon's sincere eyes, he could only nod and agree helplessly. "Don't worry, we will definitely return before dawn, and we will put the horses here and wait for you to come and take them back. It takes about half a day to go by water from Mayor's Castle to where Montoya's sailboat is anchored. The route of riding a horse is closer to a straight line, and the speed is also faster." In less than 2 hours, Moon and Xilin had already seen the familiar brown 3-masted sailboat from a distance. The place where the ship was anchored was very hidden, just in a fishhook-shaped fjord. Under the moonlight, Moon could see the flag of the Faithless hanging on the mast. "That's it, Xilin also confirmed the target, then looked around and found a suitable place. There is a commanding height in the northeast, and the wind direction is right. I'll go there and be ready to support at any time. After Moon introduced the things he brought back last night, the two made a detailed battle plan. Because the opponent is a magician of unknown strength, the means of combat must also be related to magic. So the main attack mission this time is in the charge of Moon, and Xilin is responsible for the side support. Don't worry, leave the rest to me, Moon said. He had already taken out the monocular glasses and observed the target in the distance. Through the confession of the captured magician, Moon knew that there were many alchemical items in the faithless organization. Although these alchemical items are not of high level, they still need to be adequately prepared. After careful observation for a while, Moon found that except for a small amount of black fluctuations on the faithless flag on the deck, there was no obvious abnormality around the sailboat. Stuffing Bengbeng into his arms, Moon quickly put on the invisible cloak and slowly approached the sailboat. Thanks to the Buck Friendies for the reward. Chapter 186. The battle begins. When Moon approached the sailboat within 100 meters, he could vaguely hear the sound coming from the deck. Because it was already late at night, the sailboat had put away all the wooden boards leading to the land. After approaching the ship, Moon was about to cast the softening spell and the cutting spell to open the wooden boards at the bottom of the cabin so that he could enter the cabin. But just when Moon took out his wand and was about to cast the spell, Bengbeng made a slight cry in his arms. "Chi, a big guy is coming." As soon as Bengbeng finished speaking, Moon felt something moving under his feet. He jumped away in a hurry, only to see that the stone under his feet suddenly cracked. In the middle of the crack, a strong fiery red magic energy was faintly revealed. Could it be that the other party buried something underground? Moon had been wearing a monocular on his right eye. He was worried that the other party would set up some magic traps. But he didn't expect Montoya to do something underground, which was a bit unexpected for Moon. Just as Moon finished speaking, the fire magic energy under the stone just now suddenly increased a lot. Then he saw a bulge in the ground running towards the stone. Boom! The stone exploded. A fiery red thing quickly jumped out from the ground. Bengbeng's observation ability was obviously faster than Moon's. After discovering that the fiery red thing jumped out from the ground, Bengbeng locked the other party's position in time. "Chi, there." Moon looked in the direction that Bengbeng pointed. He saw a fiery red snake creature about 2 meters long coiled on a large stone not far away. The whole body of this strange snake was burning with flames, and even the snake tongue that came out of its mouth had sparks. After the strange snake coiled on the stone and stopped, its tail kept hitting the stone, as if sending some kind of information. The snakehead was always observing around, looking for what kind of creature invaded the territory. Because he didn't know the magical creature in front of him, after the other party appeared, Moon stabilized his body and didn't move. He and Bengbeng had been hiding under the invisibility cloak at this time, observing each other carefully. Seeing that the stone under the fire snake had already shown signs of melting, Moon knew that this creature should be difficult to deal with. When the fire snake detonated the first stone, Montoya on the boat had already heard the noise. He quickly ran out of the cabin and lay on the side of the ship to look at the fire snake under the boat. "Huani, is someone coming?" Montoya shouted to the fire snake in the distance. The fire snake did not answer, it was still searching hard. Seeing the fire snake in this state, Montoya knew that the person who sneaked in had not left yet. Because he was not sure about the strength of the fire snake, Moon did not choose to act rashly even after hearing Montoya's voice. But after finding no trace, Montoya immediately took out a bottle of blood-red magic potion and poured it into his mouth. It could prevent Honai from finding any trace, so that Montoya knew that he might have encountered a powerful enemy. The rich combat experience accumulated in the past prompted him to make the most appropriate response. After drinking the transformation potion and reciting the transformation spell, Montoya's body immediately underwent a strange change. His originally slender legs gradually became bent and thick, and the muscles in his legs rolled like waves, swelling up quickly and bursting through the sturdy clothes outside. The exposed skin began to crack, and thick hair grew wildly from the cracks. His legs seemed to have instantly transformed into the thick lower limbs of a tiger or leopard. When the lower limbs completed the transformation, Montoya jumped from the 10-meter-high ship's string to the reef shore. At this time, his upper body was still changing. Moon had been hiding in the corner under the boat. He didn't see the scene just now, but the changes in front of him were enough to shock him. After stepping on the rocks on the ground, Montoya's shoulders expanded rapidly, and his bones made a crackling sound. His arms continued to stretch, and his fingers became sharp and curved, like sharp tiger claws. And his head underwent an amazing change. The original face gradually distorted, and the mouth protruded forward, forming a huge wolf kiss. Sharp fangs protruded from the corner of his mouth, revealing a cold white light. The ears also stood up, becoming sharp and sensitive. After shaking twice, they began to search for subtle movements around them. At the same time, a thick and powerful leopard tail quickly grew out from behind it. With a slight shake, it was like a flexible steel whip. These changes were completed in just a blink of an eye. Moon had never seen such a creature. Wolf, tiger, leopard. The characteristics of the three creatures all appeared on Montoya. Now Montoya not only exudes a fierce aura, but also has changed his magic strength. The length of the wizard bar has grown from 2 grids when Moon first saw him to 3 grids after the transformation. Moon guessed that this sudden surge in strength should not last too long, but he obviously couldn't wait for the other party to return to human form. After completing the transformation, Montoya quickly locked the direction of Moon's location with his ears and nose. Although Moon carried a traceless flower sachet to cover up the smell on his body. But the heartbeat and slight breathing on his body could not be concealed now. It was with these subtle noises that Montoya's tiger eyes stared directly at Moon. Although he couldn't see, it didn't stop him from attacking. With the agile body of the transformed animal, Montoya's attack speed was much faster than that of ordinary wizards. Moon couldn't be sure whether Montoya, who had completed the transformation, would develop some kind of magic resistance. So he didn't use the fastest, leg lock spell, but fired 3 obstacles in a row. After training with a giant squid last week, Moon had mastered this spell 3 times in a row. Obstacles can hinder the speed of any magic and physical attack, and is one of the must-have spells to deal with this kind of agile magical creature. When Montoya found that there was magic energy blocking his approach, he immediately lit up his sharp tiger claws and began to attack. 3 swings of the claws broke 3 of Moon's defensive spells. But the time it took for the opponent to swing his claws and break the spell was enough for Moon. 5 bottles of spore powder tied together were thrown out, and then a thunder explosion directly hit the bottle body. Bang! The medicine bottle containing the spore powder of the sleeping face mushroom exploded directly on Montoya's head. The tiny spore powder quickly filled the air, and most of it fell on Montoya's fur. After casting the spell, Moon left his original position. But it was the sound of his moving body that exposed his position. After discovering Moon's trace, the fire snake in the distance quickly attacked. Because Moon was not sure whether the invisibility cloak could block the strange flames on the fire snake, he directly cast a silent, floating spell, to let the fire snake fly over his body. Just after dodging the attack of the fire snake, Montoya in the distance shook his head and quickly pounced in the direction of Moon. But at this time, the spore powder had already taken effect. Montoya's head began to feel dizzy, and the distance of his jump was no longer accurate. He used all his strength, but only landed more than 1 meter away from Moon. Moon would not have any mercy on his enemies. After finding that Montoya's movements had slowed down, he cast 9 petrification spells in succession. Although the first 6 were offset by Montoya's magic resistance, the last 3 were enough to imprison him. Water lily fungus spore powder is useless against fire snakes. Now the center of the battlefield is full of these little things that can make people fall asleep. But the strange fire snake did not show any signs of falling asleep, and its movements were still unusually fast. Seeing the fire snake turn around and attack again, Moon decisively put away the invisibility cloak. Now Montoya has been subdued. If it is just a fire snake, invisibility has become a bit of a hindrance. It was when Moon withdrew the invisibility cloak that Montoya, who was about to fall asleep, saw clearly who attacked him. But at this time he was imprisoned by the petrification spell. He could not make any sound with his mouth, and only looked unwillingly in the direction of Moon. The movement speed of the fire snake was not slower than that of Montoya after the transformation. And because its body was more slender, it could more easily avoid the magic attack. Seeing the fire snake once again bounce up with its thick and powerful tail, Moon cast 3 more obstacles, and then cast an iron armor spell on himself. The fire snake did not have sharp claws, but the flames on its body seemed sharper than tiger claws. When it just touched the obstacles magic barrier, the flames on its body immediately burned through 2 of them. But the third spell still stopped it. It was also because it felt the power of Moon's spell that the fire snake that fell to the ground did not choose to attack again. It looked back at Montoya, who was lying unconscious on the ground, and wanted to escape. But Moon would not let it go. When the fire snake turned its head to look at Montoya, Moon had already started to cast spells, blocking all the routes it could escape. After the fire snake burned 2 more obstacles, with its flames, it fled towards the direction of Montoya's sailboat without looking back. Moon quickly cast 3 thunder explosions. However, it dodged 2 of them, and the last one hit the fire snake, but it only caused minor damage to the opponent. This magical creature is not afraid of fire magic. Seeing that the fire snake used the flames on its body to burn through the wooden board and went directly into the cabin, Moon hurriedly followed it. While running, Moon used another thunder explosion to blast a passage. Then he followed the traces of the fire snake burning inside the cabin. The changes on the battlefield were very fast. When Montoya completed the transformation, Xilin in the distance had already put away his bow and arrow and was ready to run over. He had seen many battles between magicians, but this was the first time he had seen a way to turn into a monster like this. Because he was not sure whether Moon could stop him, he ran very fast. When he was about to approach the battlefield, he immediately put on the thickened mask that Moon had made. At this time, the range of spore powder around the big ship was getting larger and larger. Even a small amount of spore powder floated onto the deck. When Xilin came to the center of the battlefield, Montoya's body had returned to human form. According to the time calculation, this transformation magic can only last for 10 minutes. Seeing that Montoya, who was lying on the ground, had no trace of an animal, Xilin still took out a rope and tied him up tightly. It seems that I won't be needed in the Battle of Little Moon in the future, seeing that the magician, who was originally a huge monster, was now knocked down by Moon. Xilin actually felt a faint sense of loss in his heart. Help, help, many people on the deck of the sailboat shouted. Some slaves also ran out of the passage at the bottom of the cabin that was blown out by Moon. However, they just ran out 2 steps and fainted on the ground because of inhaling spore powder. It seems that I can still do some finishing work. After watching more than a dozen slaves fall down after drilling out of the hole, Xilin also went directly into the cabin and quickly ran to the deck. The speed of the fire snake's movement and climbing ability bought it a lot of time to escape. However, after entering the cabin, this creature was no longer in a hurry to escape, but chose to eat greedily. Moon had seen 3 corpses burning with flames on the passage where he was tracking the fire snake. These were all the leftovers that the fire snake had just eaten. The flames on the corpses ignited the surrounding wooden cabins, blocking the passage where Moon was tracking. In order to prevent the fire snake from escaping, Moon immediately cast a clear water like a spring on himself. After his whole body was soaked, he directly used thunder explosion to blow up all the burning corpses on the road. Including the wooden door that blocked Moon in front, they were all blown up one by one. It seems that Seamus's innate skills may be even more powerful in the future. Moon is now a little envious of Seamus. He knows that the power of this spell will definitely be greater in Seamus' hands. After blowing up the last wooden door leading to the deck, Moon heard all kinds of shrill screams on the deck before he came out. Help, no, jump down quickly, there are a lot of ordinary people on Montoya's ship. In addition to the crew, most of these people are slaves, and there are also a dozen beautiful women for Montoya to entertain. After the fire snake came to the deck, it did not rush to escape, but began to eat frantically. After hearing the shrill screams, Moon cast an iron armor spell on himself before walking out of the cabin. As soon as he showed his head, he saw the fire snake coiled around a woman, revealing its sharp fangs and biting her neck. In just a breath of time, the woman's body was burning with green flames, and the moisture on her body was quickly burned dry, leaving only a pile of hard bone residue on the ground. The fire snake ate very quickly. Moon didn't know what it sucked from ordinary people. However, during the time when Moon chased up from the bottom of the cabin, more than a dozen bone piles had been piled up on the deck. Not only that, at this time, flames were everywhere on the deck. The yellow-green flames of the piled bones had already shown signs of aggregation, and wherever the fire snake itself went, it could cause a trail of fire marks. Then flames would quickly rise. Perhaps without Montoya's control, the fire snake regained its ferocity and began to eat people crazily. Although Moon didn't know the origins of these ordinary people, he would not sit idly by. While the fire snake quickly entangled a teenage girl, Moon directly cast multiple barriers to surround it. But the fire snake seemed to be able to sense the existence of magical energy. After noticing that there was magical energy blocking it, the fire snake raised its head high and sprayed a kind of snake venom, burning with green flames from its fangs. Just a touch of snake venom, the effect of barriers dissipated immediately. After spraying 4 flames in a row, the fire snake took the opportunity to bite the woman under it. Chapter 187 Spell Upgrade. The venom in the fire snake's fangs was obviously more powerful than the flames on its body. Just a wisp of venom penetrated Moon's 2 barriers, and the armor spell in front of him. Not only that, the magic resistance of the fire snake was much stronger than Montoya's monster transformation. Especially after eating more than a dozen humans, the flames on this fire snake became more fierce. Seeing that the fire snake was about to pounce on the next woman, Moon decisively cut the unbeliever's flag on the mast. A flying spell was cast. Let this only flag with magical properties wrap around the fire snake's body. Then Moon decisively cast a floating spell on the flag. Without the magic resistance of the fire snake, Moon did his best to cast the floating spell. Wrapping the body with a sheet, this method was originally Moon's idea to rescue Harry on the Quidditch field. But now it seems that this flag can also become a shroud to bury the fire snake. After being wrapped, the fire snake struggled wildly in the air, and the venom in its fangs sprayed out like it was free. However, none of this could hurt Moon. Because there was a lot of magical energy on the flag of the unbelievers, and Moon wrapped the fire snake several times. This slowed down the speed of the flag burning. Since Moon's floating spell was trained during this period, it has been able to keep a 10-kilogram object floating in the air for 3 minutes. Of course, this can only be done with the blessing of the old willow wand. The weight of the fire snake in front of him was obviously more than 10 kilograms, but Moon was still trying his best to support the floating spell. The fire snake continued to rise under the effect of the spell. 10 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters, 80 meters, until finally Moon's arms began to tremble, and the flag wrapped around the fire snake was also burned. Moon was forced to remove the spell. Without the maintenance of the spell, the fire snake began to fall rapidly, but Moon would not let it go so easily. He knew that the fire snake's body had a very high resistance to magic, but he also had a very high talent for cutting magic. Moon's cutting spell was more powerful than burning flame. The fire snake in front of him was obviously more resistant to fire magic, so Moon kept casting cutting spell to hit the fire snake. Because the fire snake had no place to gain leverage in midair, it could not avoid the attack of the spell. When Moon cast the 8th cutting spell, the flames on the fire snake were obviously much weaker. Then it was thrown heavily on the deck, directly piercing through the more than 10 centimeters thick wooden board, and fell on the second floor of the cabin. Moon hurried to the hole to check and found that the fire snake still wanted to stand up. He took advantage of the situation and cast more than a dozen cutting spells in a row. I don't know which spell worked, and the fire snake was finally cut into 3 pieces by Moon. The flames on its body were completely extinguished after the body was cut off. During the battle, the spore powder of water lily fungus had spread to a radius of 30 meters. The people on the deck fainted without any psychological preparation. Even those who jumped into the sea to avoid the fire snake in a hurry finally fell asleep. The wooden sailboat was burned horribly by the fire snake, and many places on the deck had collapsed. There were still people running out from the cabin, but they fell on the deck after inhaling spores. After checking that there was no other magical power that could threaten him, Moon used the floating spell to cooperate with Xilin and sent the fainted people one by one to the reef beach not far away. After the fierce battle just now, the effect of Moon's spell was much more powerful than before. Among them, the change of the floating spell was more obvious. Perhaps it was because of the extremely strong determination to kill the fire snake just now. Moon's floating spell also changed at that time. In the past, Moon's floating spell, even with the blessing of the old willow wand, could not keep an object up to a height of nearly 100 meters. But he not only did it just now, but he was also able to cast the cutting spell continuously after removing the spell. Even after the battle, Moon found that his floating spell was able to keep an adult's body in the air. Although he could not increase the height, with Xilin's help, he was able to rescue everyone on the ship very quickly. Of course, in addition to the increase in the power of the floating spell, Moon's cutting spell, was upgraded by more than one level. When Moon was practicing at Hogwarts, he tried to use the cutting spell to cut thinner stones. But the thickness of that stone was less than 1 centimeter, and it was not a very hard pebble. But when Moon used the cutting spell to bombard the fire snake just now, not only were the wooden boards more than 10 centimeters thick under the fire snake all penetrated, but the power of the spell also continued to the wooden boards of the cabin on the 3rd floor. This should be considered a good foundation, but I don't know what spell Professor Snape prepared. Moon remembered very clearly that Snape promised him that as long as he laid a good foundation for the spell, he would teach him another self-created spell. Moon was determined to get that spell. After transporting everyone on the deck to the bottom of the ship, Moon and Xilin began to search the entire cabin before the fire spread completely. Moon first found the room where Montoya lived. He put away a manual recording magic and a small box of internal letters from the Faithless organization. After putting on the monocular and finding no other magic items in the room, Moon was about to leave, but Bengbeng jumped out of his arms. The little animal found Montoya's money box very quickly. Then after Moon blew open the lock, Bengbeng began to stuff various coins, pearls, and gold objects into his small pocket. It took less than a minute for Bengbeng to stuff a whole box of treasures into his pocket. And there was still no sign of his small pocket bulging. Bengbeng, can you bring me some things when we return to Hogwarts? Moon was originally worried that he had not learned the invisible stretch spell. But when he saw that Bengbeng actually had such a magical pocket, he suddenly felt that he didn't have to worry so much. Chi, is it something valuable? Yes, Chi, yes. After searching the rooms on the deck with Bengbeng, the man and the beast came to the cabin. As soon as he came down, Moon heard a gunshot. Xilin was holding a flintlock rifle at this time, trying to break the chains that bound the slaves. Moon just glanced at these slaves who were the same as those on the pirate ship. Then he used thunder explosion, with an unchanging expression to blow up the chains. The slaves were originally very scared. But when they saw that the people who rescued them did not make any other moves, they carefully left the cabin that looked like a prison cell. The upper deck had been completely burned, and the slaves could only go through the passage at the bottom of the cabin. But they couldn't run far after leaving the ship, because there were spores everywhere waiting for them. They had just run 2 steps when they fell on the beach one by one and fell asleep. When they searched the deepest room in the 3rd cabin, after blowing open the wooden door, Xilin and Moon were stunned at the door. Chapter 188 Human Experiments. Moon and Xilin had never seen such creatures. Are they magicians? Xilin asked subconsciously, and Moon just shook his head blankly. This room is very hidden in the innermost of the 3rd floor cabin. Perhaps it was because of the various sounds of fighting outside and the shouts of slaves. To be precise, 5 people locked in a small room all made subtle but painful groans. Help, perhaps it was because they saw that the person coming was not Montoya. A young man with monkey arms stretched out his hairy arm to Moon. However, the young man had been tortured so much that he couldn't even shout for help. The other 2 people also had limbs of other animals sewn on their bodies. Cow hooves and wolf claws. After hearing the movement, they also turned their heads to look at the 2 people at the door, but they no longer had the strength to raise their arms. In addition to the 3 humans locked on the edge pillars. In the 2 huge iron cages in the middle, there were 2 people who didn't look like humans at all. The only feature that could be called human on them was the head. The body and limbs had been completely replaced. When they noticed the movement at the door, they didn't even have the strength to blink. Because he had seen Montoya transform into an animal from a distance, Xilin subconsciously suspected that they were also magicians after seeing these 5 humanoid monsters. However, Moon did not see any wizard traces on these 5 people. The unbelievers actually used ordinary people to conduct experiments. After confirming that the 5 people were not magicians, Xilin's expression began to become ferocious, and his teeth were clenching. This was also the first time Moon had seen such a scene. There were many magic runes imprinted on the bodies of these 5 people. Especially at the seams between human and animal limbs, the magic runes were like needles and threads, densely sewing the 2 different limbs together. From these seams, Moon could vaguely see yellow mucus and dark blood flowing out. Moon had seen a lot of dead people. But this scene was far more weird and terrifying than seeing dead people. Even if Moon was holding a magic wand in his hand at this time, he didn't know how to save the 5 people in front of him. Magic seemed insignificant at this time. You go out, I'll save them. Xilin quickly recovered his composure. After noticing the subtle changes in Moon's expression, he took a few deep breaths and then pushed Moon out of the room. This was the last room, and everyone else had been rescued. After seeing the tragic situation of using human bodies for experiments, Moon quickly left the cabin and came to the reef beach outside. Looking at Montoya lying unconscious, Moon wished that he had learned black magic at this time. Because he was at the center of the spore powder explosion, Montoya inhaled a large amount of spore powder. This made him show no signs of sobriety. But Moon really wanted to ask this wizard what he was thinking at this time. He had mastered a power far beyond that of ordinary people, so why did he still harm ordinary people? More than a dozen, clear water-like springs, did not wake Montoya up. Moon was a little ruthless, and he took out his wand and pointed it at the seawater not far away. Seawater flying, Moon didn't know if such magic would succeed, but he couldn't care so much at this time. He just chanted the flying spell over and over again. About 3 minutes later, a column of water suddenly appeared on the originally calm sea surface. Then the water column became longer and longer, slowly forming a small water spout as thick as an arm. Under the guidance of Moon's spell, the water spout hit Montoya's face accurately. The seawater swooping down from the sky hit Montoya's nose, mouth, ears, and eyes. The whole process took less than a minute. But after a large amount of seawater poured into the lungs, it still choked the unbeliever magician awake. The effect of the petrification spell had been removed by Moon. But the knot tied by Xilin also made Montoya unable to move. Why do you do this? Seeing Montoya wake up, Moon asked the question in his heart directly. It's you, the little potion master, let me go. Montoya did not answer Moon's question, he was still struggling desperately. Seeing that the other party did not answer the question, Moon threw out a cutting spell. The spell hit Montoya's leg accurately, and blood flowed out like a stream. Ah! I am a non-believer, swoosh. Another cutting spell. I will kill you. Perhaps the transformation into an animal affected Montoya's mind, and this magician had a much stronger tolerance than ordinary people. But this also gave Moon the opportunity to cast a few more spells. Under the torture of more than a dozen cutting spells, Montoya's body soon revealed a pile of white bones. Forgive me, I can give you all the money, slaves, and beauties. Why do you do this? Swoosh. Moon cast another cutting spell, directly cutting off Montoya's leg bones. Ah! What did I do? Why do you do this? Swoosh. What Moon wanted was never an answer from Montoya. He did not ask for specific things. He just repeated one sentence over and over again. Why do you do this? When Moon cast another cutting spell, Xilin walked out of the cabin. Moon, wake up, he doesn't deserve this. Xilin didn't know if this state would affect Moon's future magic learning, so he pulled the confused Moon in time. What's wrong? After hearing Xilin's voice, Moon gradually regained his mind and turned to look at him. I helped them, and they are all very peaceful, Xilin said and took out a strange stone tied with a black rope. This is Anton's brother. He asked me to give this to Anton. The young man with the monkey arm in the laboratory was Anton's biological brother. The reason why Xilin took so long to come out was to listen to the other party's story. Moon didn't take the stone, he just looked at it, and then glared at Montoya. Why do you do this? After seeing the stone that was stained black with human blood, Montoya knew what Moon was asking. Those are just ordinary slaves. Montoya wanted to explain again, but a sharp arrow pierced his throat directly. He's not worth it. Let's go. It's almost dawn. Xilin dragged Montoya's body and threw it into the ruins of the still-burning wooden boat, then turned around and pulled Moon to leave. The fire on the boat was still going on, and even after the addition of this evil wizard as fuel, the flames suddenly shot up high again. Moon looked at the flames rising to the sky, feeling like he was burying Montoya's evil deeds, and also like he was bidding farewell to all the dead souls on the boat. I don't know if it was Moon's illusion, but after Montoya's body was thrown into the fire, he actually heard the howling of the dead. When the sun came to the center of the sky, the people lying on the reef beach slowly woke up. The ship is gone, we are saved. After a shrill scream full of relief, the people around slowly reacted. Saved, we are really saved, God, we are really out. All the slave crew members began to shout. As more and more people joined, a short carnival spontaneously formed on the reef beach. Who saved us? I will pray for him every day. Yes, I will hold mass for him. Everyone wanted to express gratitude to the person who rescued them, but no one knew the true face of the person who rescued Moon. He was wearing a mask at the time, but I am sure he was very young. After hearing someone say this, An old man in the crowd immediately knelt down on the beach devoutly. That is the Son of God. They never show their true faces to others. They come here to punish evil wizards. The old man's words were recognized by everyone. The rescued people all knelt down on the beach again and thanked the Son of God devoutly. Moon did not know that these people he rescued would worship him as a god. He had already returned to the Scarlet Moon outside the Mayor's castle. After handing the black stone to Anton, Moon finally had a friend he could really trust in the Bailey family. You should control your expression, otherwise it will be easy to be exposed. After returning, Xilin has been persuading Moon to try to keep smiling. However, after experiencing such a cruel thing, Moon still couldn't control his expression. Now, whenever he closed his eyes, he would see the fire, the ordinary people who died in the fire, and the 5 strange people. Yes, little Moon, did something happen to you? Just now, Lynn was scared by your eyes and didn't dare to get close, Aunt Daisy asked worriedly. Moon didn't answer, because he knew that he couldn't tell others about such things. It's okay, and I just encountered some difficulties in learning magic. I have already thanked Miss Lynn. After Moon and Xilin returned, before they had time to rest, the Bailey family had gathered at the dock to see them off. In addition to saying a few polite words to Ryan Bailey, Lynn Bailey also specially prepared a large farewell gift for Moon. But Moon still didn't agree to teach her magic. As the Mayor's castle became smaller and smaller in sight, the Scarlet Moon was about to leave the wide waterway and enter the sea. I think the lady of the Bailey family must have taken a fancy to you, perhaps to ease Moon's mood. Xilin deliberately said this. But before Moon could answer, Aunt Daisy next to him immediately followed up. I think so too. Lynn looks good and has a good personality. She can indeed be considered, Daisy said, her eyes intentionally or unintentionally describing Moon. Since she knew that Moon was a magician, she rarely asked about Moon's affairs. But Daisy couldn't help but pay attention to such a big thing as an engagement. I know, but I only have magic in my heart. Xilin never thought that Moon would be so resolute. Especially at Moon's age now, it is the time to be interested in the opposite sex. But Moon is like a piece of wood, just wanting to gain strength and grow quickly. They gave you a box of gifts after all, but I didn't expect you to be so unromantic. I originally gave them the list, just wanting to pay for it, and I didn't expect them to send it directly. Moon found the steward of the Bailey family yesterday and proposed to buy some precious potion materials. But after Lynn Bailey learned of this news, she directly prepared a copy of the material for Moon, saying it was a parting gift. Moon had no choice but to accept it. When the Scarlet Moon left the waterway of the Mayor's castle and came to the sea outside, Moon returned to the room to check the gift Lynn Bailey gave him. He opened the exquisite wooden box, and the first thing on it was a whole unicorn horn. This material is very precious. In another world, because unicorns are rare and protected by the laws of the Ministry of Magic, it is very difficult to obtain. So much so that in the Diagon Alley pharmacy, most of these horns are ground into powder before being sold. 1 ounce is sold for about 100 gold galleons. And the magicians in this world obviously don't know that this is a precious potion material. It was only after Moon proposed that the Bailey Chamber of Commerce took out the horns collected from raising unicorns in the past. But even if he knew the preciousness of the horns, Lynn Bailey was willing to give Moon a whole horn, which made Moon inevitably a little happy. He took out the horn and observed it carefully in his hand. Moon found that there was no substance similar to the horn core in the middle of the horn. Could it be that the horn I got in Snow Eagle Mountain is of a higher grade? Moon still remembered very clearly that he went to Snow Eagle Mountain to collect unicorn tail hair in order to make a wand. But later, by chance, he got a more rare wand core material. The horn core of a deceased unicorn. It was also with this material that Moon made an unparalleled old willow wand. It seems that my wand is more extraordinary than I thought. Since there is no horn core in the horn in his hand, Moon plans to use it to make potions in the future. In addition to the unicorn horn, other potion materials are placed in the lower layer of the box. 3 swamp lilies, 5 snowberries, and 2 moonlight grasses. The quantity of these materials far exceeds the needs listed on the purchase list by Moon. Although these 3 materials do not seem to be much, each one is very precious. Professor Snape has confirmed that there is only 1 swamp lily in another world. Moon now has 4 swamp lilies in his hand, including the one he bought at Portnitz. According to Professor Snape, swamp lilies can be used to make a high-level detoxification potion. As for snowberry, this mysterious herb native to the Himalayas has long been extinct in another world. It can not only treat all frostbite, but also has the effect of stopping bleeding and relieving pain. Indian wizards use it to assist in practicing yoga. It is rumored that it can improve the physique of wizards, but this has not been proven in the magic world. In alchemy, after purifying the juice of snowberry, it can also repair the damage of alchemical items. The last two moonlight grasses are also very precious. The biggest prize left by Mr. Newt in the herb club this year is a moonlight grass. Cedric made a little living hell decoction just to get this herb. It can be used with other materials to make moonlight potion, which can give wizards the ability to see at night. According to Professor Sprout, the moonlight grass in the herb club is the only one found in the British wizarding world in the past 30 years. Moon now has 2 of them. Will it be too conspicuous to release these materials? After getting these materials, Moon hesitated. He knew that these materials would definitely cause a sensation in the British wizarding world. You can plant these herbs first, and then release them slowly. Thanks to taking care of the magical plants in the herb club for a long time, Moon is now very familiar with these herbs. After placing the swamp lily and moonlight grass, Moon turned his eyes to the things he brought back from Montoya. Chapter 189 Fire Emblem Key. Moon didn't bring back much from Montoya's sailboat. A small package could hold everything. A stack of letters from the Faithless Organization, a magic manual of Montoya himself, a spell auxiliary ring, 3 bottles of potions, and a dead fire snake. Moon first opened all the letters and read them. Through the contents of these letters, Moon knew most of the secrets of the Faithless Organization. As the head of the Faithless on Solomon Island, Montoya obviously had more information than the 2 captured magicians. Moon originally thought that the scale of the Faithless Organization was only about 20 wizards on the Vina Islands. But from the information in these letters, the power of the Faithless Organization is greater than Moon imagined. This organization has been established for more than 100 years, with at least hundreds of wizard members. At the beginning of the Faithless Organization, a firm goal was established: fight against the Holy Church, and they have been implementing this goal over the years. Since the establishment of the Faithless Organization, they have launched 3 large-scale attacks on the Holy Church, but all of them ended in failure without exception. Even before the last operation, the secret base of the Faithless Organization was found and destroyed by magic by a cardinal of the Holy Church. Then their leader was arrested by the Holy Church and imprisoned. In the letter, Montoya speculated that there was a traitor in the Faithless Organization, which led to the failure of their 4 operations. It was also after the failure of this operation that the Faithless Organization fell into division. One of them came to the Vina Islands and tried to take root and survive here. However, when they first landed on the island, they were strongly expelled by local spellcasters. Then in the next 30 years, the Faithless Organization seized 2 islands in the archipelago through wars, barely supporting the survival of the remaining forces of the organization. It turns out that the source of the Faithless is not on this continent. After checking the information in the library of the Mayorzu Castle, Moon already knew that the ruling area of the Holy Church was on the Coddle continent across the sea from the Federation. There is no country on that continent, and everyone must obey the instructions of the Holy Church. And the Faithless Organization also launched a rebellion against the authority of the Holy Church on this continent. I wonder if we can hide it from the other party by using the Bailey family's banquet as a cover. Moon originally chose to counterattack on the night of the banquet in order to avoid a direct conflict with the Faithless Organization. Now it seems that this choice is very wise. But now that he knows the background of this organization, he is still a little worried. According to the content of the letter, the Faithless force on the Vina Islands is only 1/3 of the original organization. In addition to finding a suitable place to survive, they have been actively preparing to rescue the Faithless leader imprisoned by the Holy Church. The alchemical key that Wu Moon accidentally obtained is actually their secret weapon. The letter introduced that this key was specially hired by the Faithless to create an alchemist from the Magician Association. It is specially used to break the holy light cage of the Holy Church. The real name of the alchemical key is the Fire Emblem Key, which has the effect of restraining the magic of the Holy Church. After reading the relevant content in the letter, Moon took out the alchemical key for comparison. Now he not only knows the purpose of the key, but also understands its specific material. The main part of the key is star pattern cloud iron. This was found by the Faithless Organization in a mysterious valley on the Coddle continent. This meteorite is very hard and contains a trace of mysterious energy from the starry sky, which is naturally resistant to magic. The teeth of the key are made of amberstone, which comes from the depths of the volcano. The rune magic circle seals the pure and hot fire magic. According to the design concept of the alchemist, this fire magic can just burn the special wood used to build the holy light cage. As for the handle of the key, it is wrapped with a layer of lynxy python skin. It can enhance the magic resonance between the user and the key, and keenly perceive the user's intentions. Even in the end, if the key fails, this snake skin will absorb the wizard's own ability as a supplement. No wonder the magic energy color of this key is very high. Moon once observed this alchemical key with a monocular. The magic energy color it exudes ranks third among the alchemical items Moon has seen. The first one is of course Moon's old willow wand. The second one is the magic talent tester that Moon observed in the Bailey family. The color concentration emitted by this key is similar to that of the invisibility cloak that Dumbledore gave to Moon. It seems that the holy light cage of the Holy Church is very difficult to deal with. Moon guessed that the faithless organization must have spent a lot of money to refine such a high-level alchemical item with such precious materials. And now this alchemical item has been in Moon's hands. Although Moon has not yet figured out how to use it, it does not prevent him from studying this alchemical item first. In addition to the things related to the key, Moon also learned from the letter that the faithless organization plans to seize the Aurum Islands from the Federation's spellcasters. However, the letter did not mention what the faithless would do specifically, which made Moon a little disappointed. The Aurum Islands are not far from Xingin Island. It is very close to the sphere of influence of spellcasters and faithless. Moon naturally does not want to be involved in the war between the two sides, so after learning the news, he immediately changed his original route. He would rather take a detour than have anything to do with the faithless organization. No wonder there are only 3 faithless on Salmon Island. It turns out that they have been preparing to seize new territory half a year ago. The leader of the faithless organization in the Vina Islands is named Guy Cooper. He has been preparing to seize the island on Aurum Island recently, and most of the faithless wizards have been sent there. It is precisely because of this that Moon did not see more faithless wizards when dealing with Montoya. In addition to the information in the letter, Moon also learned about the opponent's magic experiments and the spells he is good at from Montoya's magic manual. In addition to the bone-crushing curse and the stone skin curse, Montoya also mastered a spell called the boiling blood curse. This is an extremely evil and destructive black magic. This magic can inject a corrosive and irritating magical energy into the blood of the person being cursed. Make the various components in the blood react abnormally, just like a liquid thrown into a raging fire. Then the cursed person will feel as if a ball of fire has been ignited in the body, and die in extreme pain. It seems that Montoya's death was not unjust. By reading the opponent's magic manual, Moon knew that the spells that Montoya was good at had been tested on ordinary people. This is also the reason why he can cast ordinary spells with greater power. As for the human body transformation magic that he mastered, it was perfected with the help of ordinary people's bodies. Moon burned all the letters and left only the magic manual. He didn't know if there would be anyone in the faithless who had studied the same thing. But leaving these for data research, Moon felt that maybe he would be able to rescue those who were transformed in the future. In addition to the magic manual, Moon left everything related to transformation magic, including the 3 bottles of blood potion. The detailed method of refining this potion was recorded in Montoya's magic manual. A very important ingredient in the formula is called the blood of a fantasy beast. This fantasy beast does not refer to a specific creature, but the 5 transformed people imprisoned by Montoya in the cabin. No wonder those 5 people are so weak. It turns out that in addition to being transformed, they also have to bleed. The level of the potion will change when different types of fantasy beast blood are added. Montoya can only refine the transformation potion with 3 kinds of magical beast blood added. This kind of potion actually has a lot of side effects. After taking it many times, the wizard's mind will be damaged by the transformation into an animal. As a result, he will become more and more manic and bloodthirsty. Let's seal it up first. It's best to keep this kind of thing out of the light. After sealing the potion, Moon looked at other things. Montoya's spell auxiliary ring is much higher than the captured magician's level. Moon tried to use it to cast Mirror Light Reverse Tide, and found that the spell casting speed was saved by another 3 seconds. The only pity is that wearing 2 rings on the hand at the same time will not increase the effect. It seems that the auxiliary is auxiliary after all. If you want to increase the speed of the spell, you still need to transform the spell. Among all the seized items, Moon valued the body of the fire snake the most. After the strange snake was taken back, Moon put on gloves and carefully took out the remaining snake venom from the snake's fangs. Although the fire snake was dead, the snake venom was still filled with a lot of fire magic energy. In order to preserve the venom, Moon had to use the cutting spell, and specially made 2 stone bottles. After removing the snake venom, Moon then skillfully peeled off the snake skin, pulled out the tongue teeth, and took out the snake gall. According to the potion-related knowledge learned at Hogwarts, Moon knew that most of these parts of snake creatures could be used to make potions. However, after reading Montoya's magic manual, Moon threw away all the snake meat and took out the entire spine. Flammaback snake. It turns out that the flame does not emanate from the snake skin, but from the snake bones. Flammaback snake is the name of the fire snake in the magic record manual. After taking out the snake bones, Moon found that it was covered with some flame-shaped runes that he had never seen before. Moon once borrowed a book-detailed explanation of ancient alchemy from the Hogwarts library. It records the origin of ancient wizards' research on alchemy, which is this kind of pure natural magic rune. Compared with the runes created by wizards, naturally formed magic runes are often simpler, but they have powerful and pure natural power. In addition to ancient alchemy, the origin of ancient magic also comes from magic runes like this. Although there are only 2 types of fire runes, maybe I can try to transform and integrate them into my alchemy and fire spells. Moon turned over the entire spine of the flame snake and found that although there were many runes on it, they could be divided into 2 types in total. One represents fire magic, and the other should be related to poison. Moon can't tell the specific meaning yet, but this does not affect his subsequent research on them. After copying the runes on the snake bones into his magic record book, Moon checked the changes in his own strength. After yesterday's battle, Moon's wizard bar has risen to 2 grids. If he holds the old willow wand in his hand, the length of the wizard bar will increase to 2.5 grids. The increase in strength often means that the power of Moon's spells has also changed. Just now, when he used the cutting spell to make a stone bottle, Moon found that the power of this spell has increased a lot. The material of the stone bottle is very similar to the wall bricks of Hogwarts Castle. It should be some kind of granite. Originally, facing such a hard material, Moon had to cast the softening spell to cooperate. But just now, he could easily cut this kind of stone into various shapes with just the cutting spell. In addition to the cutting spell, Moon's floating spell also changed significantly. Now his floating spell can already make 50 kilograms of objects rise into the air. It's just that the duration is not long. The change of the flying spell was a complete surprise for Moon. He originally just wanted to use seawater to wake Montoya up, but he didn't expect that after such a casting, the spell would change so much. After the Scarlet Moon left the Mayorzu Castle, Moon tried this spell on the ship. Moon learned this spell from Cedric. As far as he knows, Cedric can only use this spell to summon some small pieces of wood now, and can't even summon larger stones. Not to mention separating such a small water spout from the seawater. Although Moon is now out of the mental state of facing Montoya. But he was also able to use seawater flying, but the power was just like the one that was poured on Montoya's head. It seems that the effect of the spell has a lot to do with the wizard's mental state. In addition to the reduced power of the water spout, Moon found that using this spell to control the direction and strength of the water flow still requires practice. When Moon was testing the spell on the Scarlet Moon, a black crow landed on the reef beach where Montoya's sailboat was docked. A small wooden barrel with a letter tied to the crow's leg. The content of the letter in the barrel was unknown. At this time, all the slaves on the reef beach had already left. The crow searched for a while but did not find the target. After finding a charred corpse in the ruins and having a feast, it flew northeast again. It was also on Xinjiang Island at the same time. The Great Witch of the Xingmang tribe asked someone to find the tribal leader. Great Witch, is there any news about Ben, the leader of the Xingmang tribe? Lu was Ben's father. Originally, when Xinglu learned that his son would complete the ultimate mission of their tribe, he was very happy. But Ben had been away for half a year and no news came back, which still made him anxious. Even Ben's mother had quarreled with him several times. That's right, not only Ben is back, he also brought the successor of the high priest. Since Ben left the tribe, Xingmang Great Wizard has performed divination more than a dozen times a day. This morning, he tried divination 5 times in a row, and the results all showed that the successor was about to return. Great Wizard, is this true? Xinglu was still a little unbelievable. The high priest who disappeared for 3,000 years is really coming back. Seeing the surprised expression of the tribal leader, Xilin Great Wizard was actually even more excited. He even almost threw the animal bone away when he was divination in the morning. Let the tribesmen prepare first, and then notify the tribesmen of the other two tribes, tell them that the stars have responded to me, and Fiu is about to return to Xinjiang Island. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, Stone from 3,000 years ago. One day after leaving Salmon Island, the Crimson Moon was about to arrive at its new destination, the Sunlight Harbor on Xinjiang Island. According to Ben, this port was the only port on Xinjiang Island. Usually, many foreign ships would be moored there for business. But today, Moon did not see a single ship at this port, only a large number of tribesmen wearing fur gathered on the shore. Where are the ships? Is this the Sunlight Harbor? Ben stood on the deck of the Crimson Moon and looked around blankly. After finding that there was indeed no ship, he even suspected that something had happened on Xinjiang Island since he left for half a year. Moon noticed the abnormality of the port earlier than him. Before the Crimson Moon entered the port, he saw a large group of people standing on the shore. At the front of these people, there were more than a dozen wizards, each of whom had a wizard bar on his head. Moon never thought that he would see so many wizards at the same time in this world. Just when Moon was curious, Ben also found the people standing on the shore. He accurately locked onto the people of his tribe, and then began to jump and wave frantically on the boat. I'm back. Ah, it's me. Ben. Seeing that someone on the shore also responded to him, Ben became even more excited. See, Brad, I've said that I'll be treated differently when I come back. After all, I'm the son of the leader of the Xingmang tribe. During the time on the Fiu, Brad and Ben had already become close friends because of their similar ages. Knowing that he might have to live on Xinjiang Island in the future, Brad kept asking Ben whether horses could be raised on the island and how big the pasture was. Don't worry, there are many horses in the tribe, you don't have to worry about their breeding problems. Ben was still introducing the things on Xinjiang Island in a frivolous manner. However, Brad still had some doubts about his words. He found that only a small number of people stood on the shore to respond to Ben. Most people did not make any movements, but just raised their heads as if they were looking forward to something coming. Are you sure these people are here to welcome you home? Brad asked curiously. Of course, Ben's expression changed as soon as he said that. No, it seems to be the people of the Xilin tribe, their witch and leader, and the witch grandmother of the Lingshu tribe. Why are they all here? After Ben finished speaking, he suddenly thought of something and turned to look at Moon. I don't know anything. Moon also turned his head to look at the tribesman who was much older than him. He smiled and nodded at Ben. I know, the ship has docked, you go down first. Moon knew very well that Ben could not pass any news to the wizard on Xinjiang Island during this period. And now that the tribesman appeared so grandly on the shore of the port, the only possibility was the divination prophecy that Ben mentioned. This is also what Moon wanted to find out on this trip. Boom. After the Fiu docked, Ben jumped down impatiently as soon as the wooden planks were put up. Father, Mother, I'm back. You don't know that I suffered a lot this time. The pirates also captured me. Ben wanted to continue to tell the story, but his chief father kicked him aside. Go away, the great shaman is still here, what are you complaining about? Xinglu was also very happy to see his son back. However, he did not expect that in such a serious occasion. Ben would start crying like a child, which made him, as the leader, feel a little embarrassed. Lu, don't say that. Ben has found the successor of the high priest for us this time. He is indeed a great contribution and deserves a reward. Seeing someone speak for him, Ben hurried to the great shaman of Xingmang. Grandpa Great Shaman, you are still sensible. Don't you know that I was captured by pirates and became a slave for a long time, from meeting pirates on the island, becoming a slave, to being rescued by Moon, and then returning to Xinjiang Island. Ben eloquently recounted all his experiences in the past 6 months. The great shaman of Xingmang tribe listened very seriously. After Ben finished speaking, he stretched out his old hand and touched Ben's hair lovingly. Okay kid, I know you've worked hard, and I'll give you some rewards later. Let's go down now, but Grandpa Wizard, I haven't introduced you to the successor of the high priest yet. Ben looked at him curiously. No need, The Grand Wizard of the Star Tribe just smiled and shook his head, then looked at the people coming down from the deck. Moon did not walk at the head of the team this time, but he could still clearly see the three old men in the crowd smiling at him. Just as he stood firm on the shore, three elderly wizards quickly came forward and stood in front of Moon. Just when he was on the boat, Moon had roughly guessed the identities of the three old men by the length of the wizard bar. Two of them were 4 squares, and one was 4.5 squares. These three wizards should be the three great wizards on Xilin Island. Welcome back, the successor. Just as Moon stood firm, the three old wizards bowed and saluted in front of him. Moon had never experienced such a solemn welcome ceremony, which made him a little at a loss. Three great witches, I'm not the heir, you must have made a mistake, I just sent Ben home. Moon had been deeply suspicious of the identity of the so-called successor to the high priest from the beginning. Now seeing that the three great witches had accurately found his whereabouts in the crowd, he was even more uneasy. You are the successor of the high priest, which has long been confirmed in the prophecy left to us by the high priest. The great witch of the Bengbeng tribe was extremely excited after seeing Moon. Especially after hearing that Moon could accurately tell their identities, he was more convinced that the prophecy was true. The prophecy of the high priest, Moon was a little surprised. He had learned from Benz that there had been no sacrifices on Xilin Island for hundreds of years. As for the inheritance of the high priest, it had been cut off for thousands of years. Yes, the last high priest left a prophecy stone carving when he fell 3,000 years ago, the great witch of the Bengbeng tribe said, and asked the people behind him to make way. Behind the crowd were three things covered with white silk cloth. The high priest predicted that when the Scarlet Moon appears again, a young man carrying a strange creature will come to Xilin Island, Bengbeng Great Wizard said as he lifted the white silk cloth on the first stone. Because a long time has passed, the pattern on the stone has long become blurred. It can only be roughly seen that there is a person painted in the center of the stone, and a strange creature is standing on the shoulder of this person. This looks like your Bengbeng, Xilin whispered to Moon. Moon has actually discovered that the magical animal on the stone carving is indeed very similar to Bengbeng. Long nose, small eyes, and black hair all over the body. Moon and Bengbeng standing on his shoulder looked at each other, and then looked at Bengbeng Great Wizard again. Are you sure this stone is 3,000 years old, and not something I drew temporarily after getting off the ship? As a wizard, Moon knew very well that there should be a lot of magic that can achieve the current effect. What's more, Bengbeng has been lying on his shoulder all day today. This made him inevitably doubt the authenticity of the stone carving. Of course not, if you don't believe it, you can look at the second stone carving. Chapter 191 Tribal Wizard Sequence. The Witch of the Spirit Tree Tribe is a gray-haired woman. Her white hair is like silver threads, with some unknown branches inserted in it to stabilize her long hair, and she is leaning on a wooden cane made of the same material. Noticing that Moon still didn't believe it, the witch walked to the second stone carving and lifted the white silk cloth. Moon could see that this stone and the first stone carving were originally one piece. The joints of the two stone carvings were very flat, as if a painting was cut in half. This is the stone carving prophecy of our Spirit Tree tribe, and it also clearly indicates the identity of the heir. The stone depicts a scene of a wizard fighting. The wizard, dressed in black and wearing a pointed hat, is casting a spell to hide a hideous monster. Such a battle scene does not mean anything, because many wizards may encounter the situation of using magic to fight our creatures. But the very strange thing about the stone carving is that the wizard is holding something like a wand in his hand. After noticing that the wizard on the stone carving is holding a wand, Moon has already fatally believed that the stone carving is not a forgery. Because after getting off the ship today, Moon did not hold the wand in his hand. And as far as Moon knows, wizards in this world do not have the habit of using wands. It can be said that Moon's wand is the only one in this world, and it is also the first one. Seeing that Moon stopped talking, the last great wizard of the Xilin tribe also came out. He is the youngest of the three great wizards, and his voice is particularly loud. The prophecy left by the high priest to our Xilin tribe is that the heir will come on the Scarlet Moon. The third stone carving depicts a person standing on a red moon and arriving at a small island on the sea. After seeing the third stone carving, Moon subconsciously looked back at the big black ship that he had transformed, Scarlet Moon. After reading all three stone carvings, not only was Moon very surprised, but the people in the veteran lane who followed him also showed strange expressions. The tribesmen on Xilin Island naturally had never seen Moon's wand, nor did they know the name of the big black ship. But the companions who had drifted on the sea with Moon for so long knew it very well. The person on the stone carving might really be Moon. Moon couldn't help but wonder if the high priest 3,000 years ago could travel between the two worlds like him. Or was he even more powerful and could travel through time? Moon couldn't be sure. After combining all the paintings on the 3 stone carvings, only Moon could fit every scene above. Perhaps because he saw the unnaturalness of Moon's expression, the Star Wizard had the stone carvings moved away and stood up again. Ere the Star Wizard was about to speak, but was interrupted by Moon. "Wizard, you should call me Scarlett or Moon." Does sound a bit strange. Moon has never believed in prophecies very much. In addition to the influence of the drunkard divination professor at Hogwarts, Moon actually believes that destiny should be in his own hands, and should not be defined by a prophecy. Is that so? Then let's follow the rules of the tribal wizards and call you the High Priest. Moon waved his hand again. He had long learned from Ben that the High Priest was the most powerful among the wizards in the entire tribe. His orders can command all the tribesmen. But Moon knew very well that he didn't have such strength at all. According to the inheritance sequence of the tribal wizards: medium, witch doctor, shaman, great witch, priest, high priest. Moon is now only ranked in the level of witch doctor. Even among the young wizards following the 3 great witches, Moon found that there were 3 with similar strength to him, and 2 had surpassed him. "You should still call me Moon." Seeing the 3 elderly witches' attitudes so respectful, Moon was embarrassed to let them call him by his surname. "Okay, Moon." The Starlight Great Wizard hesitated for a while before speaking again. "In fact, we all know that it is difficult to accept the identity of the successor of the High Priest, but you can live on Xilin Island first, and this matter can be done slowly." After talking with Ben just now, the 3 great witches already knew that Moon was in urgent need of a place to live stably. And there are many such places on Xilin Island. They are also very happy to welcome the return of the successor of the High Priest in this way. "Okay." Seeing that Moon agreed, the 3 great witches all breathed a sigh of relief. As the 3 wizards who have studied tribal magic for the longest time, they master the oldest secrets in the tribe and never questioned the ability of the High Priest. Now the stone carvings predict that Moon is the successor of the High Priest, and they have no doubts. But the young wizards behind the High Priest, their ideas are not as pure as those of the High Priest. After removing all the prophetic stone carvings, the people in Veteran Lane were warmly welcomed. Not far from the pier, the hospitable tribesmen had already prepared a grand welcome ceremony. At this time, the sun had just set, but in this open space, many people holding torches had gathered. In the center of the open space, a tall bonfire had already been built. After seeing Moon enter the venue, several young and strong tribal warriors, holding torches, strode towards the bonfire. There was excitement and expectation in their eyes, and they were muttering something, as if they were praying to the god of fire. As the torches approached, with a boom, the bonfire jumped up instantly, like a ferocious fire snake, rushing straight into the night sky. This is our highest etiquette, and it hasn't been held for hundreds of years. After the introduction, the Star Wizard took Moon and walked through the bonfire to the top position. The other people in Veteran Lane were also arranged to sit around the bonfire circle. As the young men and women of the tribe danced the ancient welcome dance, smiles gradually appeared on the faces of the people in Veteran Lane. This is the style of our Veteran Lane. When guests come, we must treat them with good wine and good food. After tasting the tribe's fine wine, Hall felt more refreshed. He had been bored with the sea life for nearly a month. Although they also attended the banquet at the Mayor's castle of the Bailey family. But Hall could feel that the Bailey family treated them like guests at all, and their eyes were full of ridicule and contempt. After today's comparison, he could feel the true nature of the tribesmen. Guests? I think they want Moon to be the master here. Xilin had been following Moon just now, and he heard all the words of the 3 wizards. Especially the 3 stone prophecies, except for Moon, he felt them most deeply. Xilin originally wanted to find out the secret of Moon's identity, and now it seems that the evidence is conclusive. What's wrong with the master? Isn't this place good? There is no war, no intrigue, and I can't wait to settle down here. Hearing Hall speak his mind, Xilin couldn't refuse. After landing today, Xalin's first impression of this place was also very good. The tribesmen are very simple, kind, and hospitable, which makes Xilin very satisfied. In addition, there are powerful wizards guarding here. Such a place is indeed more suitable for living than outsiders. Of course, in addition to these advantages, The only thing to worry about is Moon. Thinking of this, Xilin couldn't help but look back at Moon and a group of tribal wizards sitting in the upper position. Chapter 192, An Older Magic. After the bonfire party started, Moon hadn't had time to appreciate the dances of the men and women below. The witches pulled him aside to tell him about their own situations. Moon was very surprised by the sincere attitude of the tribal witches. It was only his first day, and these witches didn't treat him as an outsider. Not only did they introduce the magic they were good at in detail, but they also told all the situations of each tribe. The witch of the Bengbeng tribe was named Wei. He was good at divination, runes, and making magic tools. He was responsible for all the sacrifices on Xilin Island, including divination. Moon, the first revelation of the heir of the high priest. Age 81. Length of wizard bar, 4 grids. Of course, the latter item was seen by Moon himself. The witch of the Lingshu tribe was named Yoon. All the herbs on the entire Xilin Island were managed by her, and this witch was also good at refining potions. Age 93. Length of wizard bar, 4 grids. The witch of the Xilin tribe was named Gui. He has a very hot temper. According to him, the guarding of the entire Xilin Island is the responsibility of the wizards of the Xilin tribe. He is also good at hunting and various magic battles. Age 72. Wizard bar length, 4.5 grids. Except for the 3 great wizards, the other young wizards did not understand, but they all introduced themselves. There were 3 from the Bengbeng tribe, 4 from the Lingshu tribe, and 4 from the Xilin tribe. When it was the turn of the last wizard of the Xilin tribe to introduce himself, a little change happened. Great wizard, he doesn't even admit that he is the successor of the high priest. Why should we tell him about our witchcraft skills? What if he is a spy sent by the enemy? The wizard who spoke was the strongest one in the Xilin tribe under the great wizard. The wizard bar length is 3 grids. And looking at the appearance, Moon found that this wizard and the great wizard of Xilin looked very similar, and the personality was exactly the same. Lang, do you know what you are talking about? Hurry up and leave. After discovering that his son was so reckless, the great wizard of Xilin hurriedly stopped him. Why? He just said that he only has the strength of a witch doctor, and he can never be the successor of the high priest. Moon didn't know if the 3 great wizards deliberately arranged such a play to test his strength. But he could clearly feel that the young wizards behind him looked at him unfriendly. In fact, Moon could understand it. After all, these wizards were not very old and their magic strength was not bad. With such strength, who would be willing to let an 11-year-old little wizard become the leader? Even if it was just a name, they didn't quite agree. Just like in Hogwarts, everyone was the same age, and sometimes they would argue red in the face. What's more, Moon's age was too different from theirs. Moon didn't want to provoke a conflict, but he understood that the best way to convince others was to show his strength. Especially the strength that far exceeded theirs. Only in this way can these young and energetic wizards be completely suppressed, and Moon can live a more stable life in the future. Although I'm not sure if I'm the heir, I can prove my strength. Lang, who had been glaring at the audience, had a look of triumph in his eyes after hearing Moon's words. Okay, I won't bully you. Since you're younger than me, I can let you cast a spell first. Compared with all the wizards present, Moon's age is indeed very young. Only a little girl from the Spirit Tree tribe, Yi, is younger than him. She just turned 10 this year and was only found to have a talent for magic last month. However, being young does not mean that Moon has little combat experience. Uncle Lang, you don't have to let me, just do it directly. After Moon finished speaking, he took out his magic wand and came to the center of the venue. After seeing Moon pull out his magic wand from his wizard robe, the 3 great wizards' eyes unconsciously shone. The second prophecy stone carving matches. While the great wizards were talking to each other, more people around them also noticed that something had changed in the field. Wizards duel. Such scenes are very rare on Xilin Island. Because everyone is very familiar with each other, and the great wizards are not allowed to duel privately, the tribesmen rarely see such a scene. Especially since the successor of the high priest who they welcome back to the island today has already gone to the stage, everyone can't help but look forward to it. The men and women dancing in front of the bonfire stopped dancing consciously. The tribal leaders sitting next to them and the people in Veteran Lane also looked over. Brother Moon, come on, Sophia also shouted excitedly after seeing Moon take out his magic wand. During this time on the boat, Mimir has compiled Moon's events into a new poem and handed it to these children. This makes all the children in Veteran Lane think that Moon is a powerful wizard who has never lost. After discovering that the people in Veteran Lane began to cheer for Moon, the people of the Xilin tribe also began to make a fuss. Lang, you can't lose, that's right, you are the second bravest warrior of the Xilin tribe. Hearing the ridicule and sarcasm of many people around him, Lang's cheeks immediately turned red. You agreed to it yourself and didn't need me to give in. Don't say I'm bullying you. Hearing more and more people around him starting to make noise, Lang knew that this battle had to be resolved quickly. Otherwise, even if he could win, he would be laughed at by everyone. That's right, come on. After Moon finished speaking, Lang put his hands together, quickly made gestures, and began to chant a spell. The whistling wind, hidden in the sky and earth, shuttled through time and space. I open the mysterious door in the name of the ancestors of the tribe. Come, powerful wind, respond to my call. Lang's spell-casting gestures are full of ancient charm, and his spell is more like a prayer. When Lang just started to chant the spell, Moon could feel a small breeze around him. As Lang's spell-casting gestures accelerated, the sound of chanting the spell gradually became louder. The wind around Moon became more and more violent, and even the bonfire next to him shot up high. This is Lang's specialty, the wind prayer. Yes, Lang is the most familiar with the spell besides the great wizard Xilin. The young wizards on the stage were curious after seeing the spell Lang cast. As wizards living on the same island, they knew very well that the wind prayer would become more powerful as time went on. It could even easily stir up huge waves, destroy trees, and blow over houses. They wanted to know how Moon would deal with such a powerful spell. The three great wizards were also staring at the changes in the field. Because they knew their own witchcraft better, they were not worried about casualties in this competition. However, Moon stood there motionless from the beginning, which made them curious and a little worried. In fact, Moon had been observing the other party's spell-casting process. When communicating with the great wizard of the Xilin tribe just now, Moon already knew that the wizards of their tribe were good at wind and water magic. Although Moon had not learned similar magic classifications at Hogwarts, he also wanted to see it very much. As soon as Moon felt the wind brought by the magic, he made an accurate judgment. It's faster than the magic of the faithless, but its power is obviously insufficient in the early stage. Looking at Lang doing horse stance and bending over to perform various ancient gestures, Moon didn't want to attack him either. He pointed his wand lightly and a spell came out. Chapter 193 The Power of the Great Wizard. Moon's wand just lightly tapped, and the raging winds around him stopped instantly. The bonfire also suddenly returned to normal. Lang, who was just summoning strong winds, had already fallen to the ground because of his unstable lower body. This made Moon, who was standing in front of him, stunned for a moment, not knowing whether he should avoid the other party's kneeling. Everyone around was also confused by the scene. They had originally been braving the strong winds, wanting to watch and appreciate a real magic duel. But now it seems that there is no magic at all. What happened? Where is the strong wind? Where is the magic? The young wizards were still looking forward to how Moon, who was favored by the great wizards, would deal with Lang's prayer for the wind. But they didn't expect that the battle ended in just 1 second. What happened? Did the air take action? A young wizard sitting in the stands asked his companion next to him curiously. I don't know, I just blinked, and then Lang fell to the ground. The wizard next to him also didn't know what happened. I saw it. The air pointed at Lang with a stick in his hand, and then the battle was over. Hearing a young wizard say this, everyone looked at him curiously, with doubtful expressions on their faces. Are you sure it was the air who did it, not the great wizard? All the young wizards didn't believe that a wizard so young could get rid of Lang in one move, and also annihilate the wind prayer. It wasn't the great wizard. As far as I know, there is no such fast witchcraft in the tribe. The speaker was a middle-aged woman sitting behind the great witch of the spirit tree. Her strength was similar to Lang judging from the length of the wizard bar. She should also be a shaman in the tribe. This is the level second only to the great wizard in the sequence of tribal wizards. Shaman Lu, if it was really the air who subdued Lang, then isn't he too powerful? The battle ended in less than a second. This was beyond the understanding of the tribal wizards. Some of them even wondered if Moon could subdue all the tribal wizards directly, if he could cast spells continuously. No, this little witchcraft should be relatively simple, so it will be faster to perform. The shaman named Lu had just finished speaking when Lang, who was lying on the ground, propped himself up with his arms and tried to raise his head. PFFT, after spitting out the mud and sand in his mouth, Lang spoke with some dissatisfaction. Are you using witchcraft? It's magic. Moon had already put away his wand and just smiled at him. Magic? How can it be faster than witchcraft? Not only did Lang doubt it, but the witchcraft in the tribe also had the same idea. They had friction with the spellcasters and non-believers outside. But they had never seen such fast magic. Moon could actually understand why Lang had doubts. He had fought with both non-believers and tribal witchcraft. Although the witchcraft of tribal witchcraft was more ancient, when the spell began to be recited, the witchcraft had already taken effect, but the power was relatively small. In comparison, the magic effect of non-believers would not take effect until the spell was finished. It seems that the tribal wizards are indeed capable of protecting Xilin Island. But I really only know magic. After saying this, Moon immediately released Lang from the leg lock curse, and then reached out to help him up. In his opinion, he had already won the victory, and there was no need to embarrass the other party too much. However, Lang was obviously not very grateful. Facing Moon, who is much younger than him, he still lost the duel so quickly, which made him feel very embarrassed. Pushing away Moon's outstretched hand, he said somewhat unconvinced. Let's compete again. I was careless just now. When Moon heard this, his brows unconsciously frowned. But before he could say anything, the great wizard Xilin next to him immediately stood up. Lang, you retreat, you lose. The great wizard Xilin first reprimanded Lang with fierce words, and then looked at Moon with a smile. Moon, I wonder if I can compete with you. Hearing the words of the great wizard Xilin, Moon's brows unconsciously frowned deeper. The same was true for Lang standing next to him. Although he knew that his father's witchcraft was far more powerful than his. But the great wizard Xilin had not fought with anyone for a long time. The great wizard Xilin's ideas were naturally longer term than those of the young wizards. Because the wizards of the Xilin tribe led by him were responsible for protecting the entire Xilin Island, he paid great attention to the use of magic in battle. After seeing Moon's spell-casting speed, the great wizard Xilin was very sure that this would be a mysterious power far beyond witchcraft. He could subdue the waves who cast the prior wind spell in such a short time. Then he would definitely be able to subdue foreign enemies quickly. After knowing the importance of the magic mastered by Moon, the great wizard Xilin wanted to experience it himself. Okay, how do you want to compete? Moon did not see any hostility in the eyes of the great wizard Xilin. On the contrary, he could see that the old wizard was very excited, and he seemed to have found some treasure when he saw him. Let's compete in the speed of casting witchcraft. Hearing the request of the great wizard, Moon naturally agreed very readily. After knowing what the tribal witchcraft was, he was very sure that the other party's witchcraft would never be faster than his own spells. Just when Moon took out his wand again, the great witch Xilin suddenly raised his hand to stop him. Can you change the magic? I've seen the one just now. Hearing that the other party just wanted to see the magic, not a real duel, Moon also smiled. Great witch, please sit down. We can sit down and compete. Moon didn't want this old wizard to have the embarrassing experience of eating mud. After asking the other party to sit down, he also sat back in the stands. Seeing that Moon didn't even make any preparations for the battle, the young wizards around him couldn't help but look forward to it. They knew very well that the great witch could cast witchcraft faster than Lang in this competition. Neither side spoke, but just looked at each other's eyes, and then cast their own witchcraft magic. The great witch Xilin's spell-casting speed was indeed very fast. With just a spell and a gesture, he made the power of prayer for the wind reach the time when Lang recited all the spells. The wizards around were also affected. However, they had expected it, and they crawled on the ground one by one to avoid being blown away by the strong wind. As soon as Moon's wand pointed, he felt a strong wind pushing his body backwards. But just when he felt the movement, the strong wind was suppressed again and dissipated into nothingness. What did you do? Untie my father. Lang hurried over to check carefully when he found that the great wizard Xilin suddenly kept a posture and did not move. After noticing the other party's nervous expression, Moon just raised his wand, pointed lightly, and recited the counter spell of the petrification spell. The great wizard Xilin, who was hit by the spell again, immediately regained his ability to move. Great! Great! This is the witchcraft that can really defend Xilin Island. Seeing that the great wizard Xilin was fine and said such a sentence, the people around couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. As the most capable wizard on the entire Xilin Island, the evaluation of the great wizard Xilin was equivalent to affirming Moon's status. However, just as he finished speaking, the Starlight Great Shaman beside him immediately warned him. GUI, watch your words. The heir has just returned. How can we involve him in guarding Xinjiang Island? Oh. I was so anxious that I forgot about the important matter of the heir. The great shaman of the Xilin tribe slapped his forehead fiercely, then turned to look at his son. Lang, go and get the sea map of our Xinjiang Island, and let the high priest choose a suitable place. Chapter 194. The island is in hand. The most important thing for Moon to come to Xinjiang Island is to get a piece of land of his own. This is not only to allow the people in Veteran Lane to live a stable life, but also to give himself a place to study magic with peace of mind. However, Moon did not expect that with just 2 small spells. The witches took out the sea chart very readily, and also competed to win Moon over to their territory. High Priest, you see, the entire northern and northwest 13 islands of Xinjiang Island belong to our Xilin tribe. If you like any one, just tell me, I can make the decision and put it in your name now. The Great Witch Xilin had just finished speaking, and the Great Witch Lingshu next to him immediately pointed to the center of the sea chart. The High Priest wants land, so he must want to plant something. The land of our Lingshu tribe is the most fertile, so it should be very suitable for the High Priest to stay there. Hey, Grandma Yun, how can you say that? Our Xilin tribe has the largest land area, and the High Priest should go to us. Don't say that. Although our Lingshu tribe has less land, it is not a problem to accommodate thousands of people. Moon End was about to correct the 2 great witches addressed to him. But he never thought that before he opened his mouth, the 2 great witches had already started arguing. After Xingmang Great Witch found that the situation had changed, he took the opportunity to point to the southern area of the sea chart. High Priest, there is a small island here, called Xingguang Island. 3 years ago, there were still tribesmen living on it. The area is large enough, and you can move everyone in, Xingmang Great Witch said, and when he looked back at his 2 old friends who were still arguing, he immediately added, and there is ready-made land and enough houses on this small island, it just needs to be renovated. The small island that Xingmang Great Witch pointed to was not far from Xinjiang Island. The area is about 50 kilometers, and originally a small branch of the Starlight tribe lived on it. However, in recent years, due to the gradual decrease in the population of the tribe on Xinjiang Island, the Great Witches moved all the tribesmen scattered on the outer islands back to Xinjiang Island. Moon only took a look and fell in love with this place called Xingguang Island. The geographical location here is very suitable, less than 5 nautical miles away from Xinjiang Island. And there were traces of the tribesmen living on it before, with houses and farmland, which is extremely convenient. Moon has now obtained the new version of the flame snail fertilizer formula, and now what he lacks is a piece of arable land. In addition, this island is not far from Hufus Island. Moon already knows that there is the power of the Bailey Chamber of Commerce on this island, which is very suitable for him to go there to purchase magic materials. And according to the Bailey family, the unicorns there raise are on this island. For Moon, the only flaw in this island is that it is also very close to Orm Island. When Moon came, he had learned from Montoya's letter that the unbelievers and spellcasters were fighting for control of the island. Thinking of this, he looked at the 3 witches with some worry and told them about it. Seeing that Moon had set his target on the island of the Xingmang tribe, the Witch Xilin and the Witch Lingshu were about to complain about the Witch Xingmang. However, after hearing what Moon said, they stopped the momentum of quarreling. High Priest, you don't have to worry. Whether it's the spellcasters you mentioned or the unbelievers, they dare not invade the territory of Xinjiang Island. The Witch Xilin patted his chest loudly, and his face was very proud. That's right, although we are all old, we will not let a few young people bully the witches of our tribe. The Witch Lingshu spoke in a very gentle tone, but her words revealed an inviolable toughness. Moon was naturally not afraid of unbelievers and spellcasters. Especially when fighting alone, Moon was very sure that his spells must be faster and his combat effectiveness must be stronger. But if the opponent attacked with dozens of people together, coupled with endless magical creations, alchemy and other items, this made Moon a little worried that he might not be able to cope with it at this stage. However, after hearing the confident words of the great wizards, Moon was relieved. Now for Moon, the biggest threat is the revenge of the faithless organization. He has eliminated a mid-level wizard in the other organization, and has also imprisoned 2 ordinary wizards. Although the conflict was not provoked by him, future conflicts are inevitable. And now there are 3 tribal wizards backing him up, which makes Moon feel more attributable to Xinjiang Island. According to the content of Montoya's letter, Moon guessed that the strength of the leader of the faithless organization in the Vina Islands is probably 3-4 grids of the wizard bar. Even if the other party really has a transformation magic similar to Montoya, it is only 4.5 grids of strength at most. There are 3 tribal wizards of equal strength on Xingjian Island. Although the number of young wizards on Xingjian Island is less than that of faithless, the existence of high-end combat power is also very deterrent. This is the biggest guarantee for Moon to live a stable life and study magic in the future. Witnessed by the 3 great witches, Moon and the leader of the Xingmang tribe agreed on the ownership of Xingguang Island. Seeing that Moon decided to stay on Xingjian Island, the 3 great witches breathed a sigh of relief. As the successor of the high priest and the hope that the tribe had waited for 3,000 years, they naturally hoped that Moon could stay on Xingjian Island forever. However, the great witches Xilin and Lingshu were still a little annoyed that they were preempted by the great witch of Xingmang. After seeing that Moon and the leader of the Xingmang tribe had finished drinking the agreement wine, the great witch Xilin immediately stepped forward. High priest, treat Xingjian Island as your home in the future. Do whatever you want and don't be afraid of those demon wizards outside. The great witch Xilin was still as generous as ever. After putting away the sea chart, he picked up a bowl of fine wine and toasted to Moon. Since knowing that alcohol would delay learning magic, Moon has no habit of drinking. Even at the dinner of the Bailey family, he did not drink a sip of wine. But today, he finally had an island of his own, which made Moon happy and he wanted to indulge himself. Moon clinked the pottery bowl with the great wizard Xilin and stopped after a sip. Great wizard, you just said that the wizards outside are all demon wizards. Is there any reason for this? Moon had heard Ben say not long ago that the great wizards of the tribe were very repulsive to the magicians outside. The word demon is also the unified name for the magicians outside by the wizards of the tribe. After hearing Moon's question, the 3 great wizards looked at each other, and then the great wizard of the Star tribe came out and explained. In fact, the reason why the wizards outside are all demons is that their magic all comes from Erebus. Erebus? Who is he? Moon had read the historical materials of the Venus Islands in the library of the Bailey family. He had never found such a name in these books. He is the real devil, and he created this so-called Holy Church. Chapter 195 The Secret of the Tribal Wizard. Erebus. A man who truly stood at the top of the magic world. He created the Holy Church with his own ability and called himself the Pope. Although this happened 3,000 years ago, his deeds are still easy to make any man excited. This includes Moon, of course. Moon, who has lived in the Federation since he was a child, used to know only the magician forces of spellcasters and the Magician Association. It was only after he came to the Vina Islands that he learned about the unbelievers and the Holy Church. Especially the name of the Pope, he only knew it today. Are you saying that the first Pope of the Holy Church is a demon? Moon was still a little unbelievable when he heard what the witches said. Although he didn't know much about the Holy Church. But Moon knew that the unholy calendar used by the entire continent now was used from the founding of the Holy Church. And not only in the Federation, the entire Manila Empire also uses this calendar to count years. Bah! Bullshit Holy Church! Bullshit Pope! After hearing Moon's words, the witch Xilin immediately refuted fiercely. Go back. Watch your words. After the witch of the spirit tree glared at the witch of Highland, she immediately came forward with a cane. High priest, this matter is not suitable for more people to know. You can go to the back and we will tell you everything about it, the witch of the spirit tree said, pointing to a huge tent behind the campfire. Moon just took a look and nodded in agreement. An hour later. After learning the truth of the matter, Moon sat on the stone chair in the tent in a daze. The first Pope of the Holy Church was also a wizard priest in the tribe, yes, and he is the Moon priest second only to the High Priest. Through the introduction of the witches of the Xingjian Island tribe, Moon learned a secret story of a tribal wizard that happened 3,000 years ago. At that time, Erebus was the most talented among the tribal priests. But in the end, he failed to be elected as the High Priest. This made him disheartened and left the tribe, and went to the Coddle continent alone to create the Holy Church. Erebus's own magic power is very high. After arriving in the New World, in order to separate from the witchcraft system of the tribal wizards, he founded the so-called Holy Magic System. Then he began to recruit all the people with magic talent on the entire continent to learn the new magic Holy Magic. Because Erebus taught magic without any threshold, the new Holy Magic only pursued power, which made the scale of the Holy Church bigger and bigger. It didn't take long for Erebus's holy church to completely control the entire Coddle continent. Later, in order to prove that he was stronger than the tribal high priest, Erebus chose to fight a decisive battle with the tribal wizards. The result was obvious. The tribal wizards finally retreated to a small island in the Vina Islands. The Holy Church occupied the entire Losses continent. Moon had already known the history of the Losses continent in the Bailey family. The Holy Church later withdrew from here because of the continuous resistance of several empires on the Losses continent. But the Pope at this time was no longer Erebus. What about the Magician Association? Moon now knows that the two largest wizard forces in the world are the Holy Church and the Magician Association. The tribal wizards generally call all the magicians outside as demons. So the people of the Magicians Association must not be able to avoid it. Humph. Since Erebus can betray the tribe, then naturally someone will betray him. The great wizard Xilin said something like venting, and then stopped talking. As the wizard who contributed the most to protecting Xingjian Island, the great wizard Xilin hated the culprit who caused the tribe to be trapped on the island. Noticing that Moon did not understand, the great wizard Xilin stood up and said, "We don't know much about the Magicians Association, but the records in the tribe are very clear. The person who founded the Magicians Association also came from the Holy Church, and they finally went to war with the Holy Church, so that's it." After the explanation of the great wizard Bengbeng, Moon finally figured out why the tribal wizards generally called the magicians outside as demons. According to the order of the whole incident, whether it is the Holy Church or the Magicians Association, as well as the Imperial Court wizards, spellcasters, and non-believers later, their magic comes from the first Pope Erebus. Even if they no longer use the so-called holy magic system magic, the source is the Holy Church. To be more precise, their magic all comes from tribal wizards. The reason why Moon is not in the sequence of demons is naturally because his magic does not come from this world at all. Compared with Moon, other magicians are more like traitors within the tribal wizards. Thinking of this, Moon couldn't help but worry. He looked at the three great wizards in a daze. "Great wizard, why have you been waiting for the successor of the high priest for so long? Is it for a decisive battle with the Holy Church?" Moon didn't think that he could intervene in the fight between such great forces with his own ability. Especially the Holy Church and the Magician Association, they are both huge forces that control an entire continent. After hearing Moon's question, the Great Witch of the Spirit Tree smiled and shook her head. "Don't worry, we won't push our people into danger." After confirming that Moon was the successor of the high priest they were looking for, the three great wizards had already regarded Moon as a member of the tribe. And he was the one who should be protected the most. Perhaps in order to completely dispel Moon's doubts, the Great Witch of Starlight explained again. "In fact, what our tribal wizards have always pursued is not war. Even when Erebus left, the high priest had no intention of attacking the other party. As for the wizard war, it was also provoked by the Holy Church, and we had to fight. Although we failed in the end and came to the new Star Embers Island, what we have always wanted is just to survive." The words of the Star Wizard made Moon feel a little relieved. In his opinion, the tribal wizards are fully capable of occupying the entire Vina Islands. But they did not do so, but just lived on the Star Embers Island. It can indeed show that they do not have such a great desire for war, land, and power. However, the words of the Star Wizard still made Moon curious. Survival? As far as I know, there should be no existence on the Vina Islands that can threaten the forces of the Star Embers Island, right? Moon did not know the strength of the tribal wizards of the Star Embers Island before. Now after seeing the wizards of the Great Wizards, he knows that the Star Embers Island is indeed stronger than the other three magician forces on the Vina Islands. Spellcasters, unbelievers, and magician families. And as far as Moon knows, there were spellcasters who wanted to seize control of Xingjian Island before, but they were all escorted out of the country. Now it seems that this should be the work of the Great Witches. After hearing Moon's question, the Great Witch of Lingshu came out with a cane. "We are indeed stronger than those guys outside, but we are in bigger trouble." That's right, it has never been magicians who threaten our survival, but some invisible magic, such as the curse on all the tribesmen, the Starlight Great Witch added. "Curse. All the tribesmen have been cast an evil curse, and this curse has lasted for 3,000 years. The person who cast this curse is Erebus. The tribesmen will completely perish. With the power of the High Priest, it has only slowed down the curse a lot, but it is still not solved." After the Starlight Great Witch finished speaking, his eyes were fixed on Moon, and the other two Great Witches did the same. Chapter 196 The Curse That Lasted for Thousands of Years. Moon never thought that he would shoulder such a heavy responsibility. When he first came to Xilin Island, even if all the prophecy stone carvings pointed to him, Moon did not feel anything. But now, when the three great wizards were staring at him, Moon felt that he was involved in something extraordinary. A curse that lasted for 3,000 years. And it was an evil magic set by the first pope of the Holy Church. How could it be something that a little wizard like him, who was 11 years old, could solve? Even though Moon was already studying at Hogwarts, his academic performance was far better than his peers. But Moon really didn't know much about the curse. He only knew that the curse was a kind of black magic. Just like the position of the professor of the defense against the dark arts class at Hogwarts, it was also severely cursed. But in comparison, the curse suffered by the tribesmen seemed to be more powerful. After all, it affected the entire tribe and the continuation of their wizard heritage. What is the specific content of this curse? Moon asked curiously. The three great wizards looked at each other, and finally the star wizard stood up. The inheritance of the tribal wizards is cut off, and the tribesmen are completely extinct. Hearing that this curse is so powerful, Moon can only say that he is worthy of being the Pope and Erebus. Noticing that Moon fell silent, the star wizard sighed helplessly. It is also because of the existence of this curse that we were forced to migrate to this small island and became the last branch of the primitive tribesmen. The name of Xilin Island also comes from this. I don't like this name very much. Xilin, the ashes after the stars burned, the name is not good at all. The great wizard Xilin complained beside him, but his tone was full of complaints about fate. Moon naturally heard the loneliness in the mouth of the great wizard. But now even if he vaguely believes that he is the heir, there is no way to solve this curse. According to the three great wizards, as the first pope of the Holy Church, Erebus's strength is obviously one of the top ones in the magic world. Similar to Dumbledore in another world, he may even be stronger in some aspects. This is completely beyond Moon's ability. Thinking of this, Moon could only speak helplessly. But if the high priest you mentioned couldn't solve this curse, how can I do it? Moon was very clear about his own strength. His weakest subject in Hogwarts was defense against the dark arts. Of course, this was not because he didn't work hard. It was because the professor of this course seemed to have no real skills. We don't know, but if the successor of the high priest can't do it, then I think it won't be long before there will be no more wizards on Xilin Island, and the tribe will die out. When the spirit tree witch said this, her tone was full of sadness. When Moon was on the Scarlet Moon, he heard Ben say that the priest of the Spirit Tree tribe disappeared 300 years ago. Since then, the highest level of wizard inheritance on the entire Xilin Island is only the Great Wizard. In the past, Moon didn't know why this happened. In his opinion, since there had been priests and high priests in the tribe, as long as the wizard inheritance was still there shouldn't be a priest for 300 years. Now Moon finally knows that it should be because of the existence of this curse that has limited the improvement of the strength of the wizards on Xilin Island. That's right. When I was as old as Lang, I was already a great witch. But my talent is not as good as Lang's. I think Lang's generation should only be able to become a shaman. Perhaps seeing the doubts in Moon's heart, the great witch Xilin explained helplessly. This tone of speech was very inconsistent with his original hot temper. It also made Moon clearly realize the power of this curse. Okay, don't talk about this anymore. Since Moon has come to Xilin Island, I think the High Priest will definitely guide us on the rest of the things. The Great Witch of Lingshu noticed that something was wrong with Moon's expression. She immediately stopped the other two Great Witches from continuing to talk. That's right. Today we are just welcoming the return of the heir. As for the curse, let it go, the Great Witch Xilin said, then hugged Moon and walked out of the tent. Let's go. We haven't finished the wine just now. The young wizards in the tribe have been guarding outside the tent. They all know that the Great Witches are guarding the oldest secrets in the tribe, but they still don't know the content of this secret. Moon had just arrived at Xilin Island today, but he was treated so kindly by the three Great Wizards, and he was very likely to know the most important secret of the tribe. This made the young wizards feel very uncomfortable. Lang, do you think that boy is really the successor of the High Priest? A young wizard from the Xilin tribe who was guarding outside asked. I don't know. Anyway, whether he is the successor or not, I admire his fighting ability. Lang originally had a lot of complaints about Moon, especially after he ate a mouthful of mud under the attack of Moon's magic spell. However, after seeing that his father, the Great Wizard of Xilin, was easily interrupted by Moon's prayer for the wind. He knew that he would never be Moon's opponent. The tradition of the Xilin tribe, failure is not terrible, what is terrible is not admitting failure and not making progress. Seeing Lang's expression of being very proud even after failure, the young wizard showed a mocking expression on his face. What's there to be proud of after being defeated so badly in front of the tribe? Humph, I failed, but I still dare to challenge you, but you don't even dare to challenge the heir. What qualifications do you have to say that to me? Hearing Lang say this, several young wizards around turned their heads to the side. Just now in the stands, they saw that the great wizards were so respectful to Moon, and they were actually unconvinced in their hearts. But none of them dared to take the initiative to challenge the great wizard. And now Moon can easily subdue the great wizard with just a slight wave of the small wooden stick in his hand. This makes them more aware that they can never be Moon's opponent. Humph, a bunch of cowards. How can you become a priest if you don't even dare to challenge the heir? Lang's personality is exactly the same as that of the great wizard Xilin. He doesn't care about other people's opinions, and he doesn't like to be looked down upon by others. He always cares about his own strength and the safety of guarding Xilin Island. Priest. Don't you know that there has been no great wizard on the island for more than 30 years? Not appearing doesn't mean that there won't be one. Just wait, I will definitely be the next great wizard. As the son of a great wizard, Lang knows more than ordinary young wizards. It was also because of this that he had doubts when he saw that Moon was very young. After all, he didn't believe that a little wizard like a child could solve the curse that the high priest couldn't solve. Now that Moon has shown his true strength, Lang knows that Moon's age is no longer a problem. Instead, it can better illustrate Moon's potential and future. Thinking of this, Lang respectfully followed Moon and the high wizard back to the stands. Beside the bonfire, the carnival continued. After discovering that Moon had returned, the people in Veteran Lane were relieved. Seeing that the tribesmen brought wine and food again, they completely let go. But Moon, now he has no intention of reveling. Although I don't know you, the problem you gave me is too big. Moon picked up the wine and silently complained about the mysterious high priest of the tribe who had disappeared for 3,000 years. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197, Starlight Island under construction. The day after the banquet, Moon and his party boarded the Scarlet Moon again and headed for a new destination, Xinguang Island. This time, it was not only the people from Bengbeng who set out together. The three major tribes sent a lot of people to help Moon build a new territory and home. In addition to manpower, the ship also carried a lot of tools, seeds, livestock and other daily necessities. These were all gifts that the great wizards promised to give to Moon for free to help Bengbeng settle down on Xilin Island. Ben from the Bengbeng tribe, Lang from the Xilin tribe, and Lu from the Lingshu tribe. The three of them were the leaders of the tribes who helped Moon rebuild Xinguang Island this time. High Priest, the great wizard asked me to tell you that he will send a batch of supplies every month, and you don't have to worry about your future life at all. Since Moon defeated the great wizard Xilin yesterday, Lang's attitude towards him has become extremely respectful. Even when talking to Moon, he would subconsciously put his right hand on his left chest to salute. This is a necessary etiquette for ordinary wizards to face great wizards on Xilin Island. Now Moon has enjoyed it in advance. Tell the great wizard Xilin that I'm very grateful to him. Moon had long stopped worrying about the name the tribal wizard called him. In his opinion, it was no longer important whether he was the tribal high priest or not, because he had already got what he wanted. An island that truly belonged to him. Now Moon just wanted to build a place here where he could study magic with peace of mind. In the past, on the Scarlet Moon, although Moon had time to study magic, there were also many things that needed to be solved. Now that he has come to Xilin Island, there are three great wizards outside to take care of security issues. The people in Veteran Lane also have their own things to do. Correspondingly, the things that involve Moon's energy will be reduced a lot. For Moon, in this world for 7 days, he will have more time to study magic well. Ben, who was standing aside, was also very happy. After the great wizards confirmed that Moon was the heir yesterday, he received the warmest hospitality from the tribe. Finding the successor to the high priest is the primary task of the Bengbeng tribe for 3,000 years. And now that this task has been completely completed in Ben's hands, it will naturally make the tribe recognize him more. Even in the eyes of the tribesmen of the Star Tribe, Ben has already been designated as the next leader of the Star Tribe. However, this young man has no idea about the position of the tribal leader. Even when Ben's father offered to reward him, he still chose to stay with Moon. Although others did not understand, Ben firmly believed that his choice was correct. When he was on the Scarlet Moon, he had already become friends with the people in Veteran Lane. He also learned from Brad that Moon had a fertilizer that could increase grain production. And Mimir also said that the High Priest was going to make a mysterious thing that was more powerful than witchcraft. Although Ben had no talent for magic, he also wanted to see what was more powerful than witchcraft. As for Lou from the Spirit Tree tribe, she followed to the Starlight Island, one because of curiosity, and the other because of the assignment of the Spirit Tree Witch. As the next successor designated by the Spirit Tree Witch, Lou is very good at herbal planting and caring for magical plants. Dealing with various flowers and plants every day makes her personality very quiet and indifferent. When encountering anything, her mentality will not fluctuate too much. Even when Moon subdued the great wizard Xilin yesterday, she only breathed quickly for a moment, and did not show it too obviously. Less than an hour after leaving Xinjiang Island, the Crimson Moon arrived at the small dock of Xingguang Island. Although no one lives here anymore, the dock is still maintained on a daily basis. Because the next arrangements had been made on the ship, as soon as they got off the island, everyone immediately devoted themselves to their respective work. Building houses, clearing water roads, repairing furniture, and leveling the land. Seeing everyone busy, Moon was naturally not idle. Use floating spell to help move a huge beam, clean up, quickly clean the dust and spider webs in the whole room, clear water like a spring, instantly fill the 3 large water tanks in the kitchen, box move, unlocking spell, and other various small magics greatly speed up the progress of the entire project. Ben, you have been following the High Priest. Did he use magic like this before? As a combat wizard in the tribe, Lang had never thought that magic could be used in this way before. Although he had seen the wizards of the Spirit Tree tribe use similar witchcraft to take care of flowers and plants. But it was impossible to perform it as conveniently, quickly and easily as Moon. Yes, I often saw the High Priest on the ship just wave his hand to get everything done. Ben had long been accustomed to these things. In his opinion, although the High Priest only had the strength of a witch doctor, he was far superior to the wizards in the tribe in terms of combat and the use of magic. Just as the two were talking, Moon used his magic wand to point at a piece of land and cast thunder explosion continuously. Bang! 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 After several explosions, a nearly 1 meter deep pit appeared on the ground. I think the High Priest should have shown mercy to me yesterday. After watching a huge pit appear on the ground in less than 10 seconds, Lang swallowed his saliva unconsciously. He didn't dare to imagine what would happen if the High Priest used this spell against him yesterday. You two carry that piece of wood over and fall into this pit. Just as Ben wanted to continue to brag about the High Priest's magical strength, Moon's voice sounded in the distance. After receiving the order, the two came over immediately carrying a piece of wood without any hesitation. Don't you usually study witchcraft in the tribe? Seeing that Lang not only came with him this time, but also did some physical work, and the expression on his face was very enjoyable, Moon was very confused. I have learned all the witchcraft that can be learned. Now I just need to practice in battle. Hearing Lang say this, Moon just nodded. After having the experience of using magic in battle, Moon also knew very well that fighting is indeed a means to improve magic power. And as far as Moon knows, because of the curse, the wizard inheritance in the tribe is no longer very perfect. This makes it impossible for tribal wizards like Lang to learn more witchcraft. However, just after Lang planted the wood in the pit, Moon's voice sounded again. You just need to practice after learning witchcraft, I can understand. But why did that little wizard come with you? In Moon's sight, a little girl about 8 or 9 years old was picking up stones in the field that had just been plowed. She should be the youngest among the tribesmen this time, but she worked very hard. A large bamboo basket next to her that only adults could carry was already half full of her picking. Little wizard? No. There are only 2 wizards leading the team this time, me and Lou. After hearing Moon's question, Lang subconsciously turned back to look in the direction of Moon's sight. There was only a little girl with red hands from the cold working hard. Oh, that's Lou's little daughter. She doesn't have the talent of a wizard. Lou was worried about her, so she brought her to Starlight Island, Hearing Lang say this, Moon frowned. Chapter 198 Just a Casual Finger. After Moon said that the little girl had a magical talent, Lu took her little daughter away. Even though she was still very skeptical of Moon's judgment, she did not dare to delay her daughter's future. Especially after Ben explained that the same thing happened to the Bailey family, the shaman immediately used the wind prayer to drive a small boat away from Starlight Island. The construction of Veteran Lane is still ongoing. After repairing all the houses, the men were divided into two groups, one to renovate the new fields, and the other to prepare to build paper and printing workshops downstream of the river. Moon naturally didn't have to worry about these, as Xilin and Hall had already assumed the corresponding responsibilities. The women were packing up their belongings in the new house. The children were playing in a large house at the exit of the alley. This was also the Veteran Lane school that Moon was going to build, and Mimir was temporarily the children's professor. Everything was going according to Moon's plan. At this time, Moon was in the house in the middle of the alley, starting to study and organize his recent harvest. Because the three great witches trusted his identity as the successor to the high priest, all witchcraft in the tribe was open to Moon. Among them are the tide calling technique, sand control technique, and water vortex technique of the Xilin tribe. The plant healing technique, wood saping technique, and beast exorcism spell of the Lingshu tribe. The dream technique, metal melting technique, and astrology of the Bengbeng tribe. Although the names of these witchcrafts are very simple, the contents are very complicated. The prerequisite for Moon to learn is that he must master the language of the tribesmen and their written symbols. In addition, he must also understand the beliefs, customs, history, and natural environment of the tribesmen. The creation of these witchcrafts is closely related to the lives of the tribesmen, so these lessons are naturally inevitable. For example, the plant healing technique and wood saping technique of the Lingshu tribe were created by ancient priests based on the habits of various plants in the tribe. And the performance of this witchcraft will vary according to the different habits of each plant. Similar to this is the metal melting technique of the Bengbeng tribe. As a tribe that is good at making witchcraft tools, they also use different witchcrafts when smelting various metals. For Moon, the only thing that is relatively easy to get started with is the witchcraft of the Xilin tribe. These witchcrafts created specifically for combat have no special requirements. As long as you can learn them, you will continue to practice and fight until you can finally simplify the steps of witchcraft. From complex to simple, from slow to fast. This is also the inevitable path for tribal wizards to learn witchcraft. But Moon wants more than that. After getting these witchcrafts, Moon first learned some simple ones, and then began to study the structural principles of these witchcrafts. Of course, before that, he still has to learn the tribal language and writing. The person who was originally responsible for teaching Moon the relevant knowledge was Lu Shaman of the Spirit Tree tribe. However, this shaman has left Xinguang Island, so Lang of the Xilin tribe temporarily took up this job. High Priest, do you want to take a break? There are not many tribal characters. According to your progress, you may not even need a month to learn them. Lang has never seen anyone with such a good memory. The recognition and application of more than 100 complex characters is already a 10-day learning content for ordinary people, but Moon only took 1 day. More importantly, Moon had no mistakes in mastering these words. No matter which one he picked, he could answer easily and without any mistakes. After some tests, Lang felt that Moon's memory was more magical than magic. Okay, let's stop here today. Moon actually felt a little tired. In order to better understand these witchcraft, he kept his brain in that magical state when learning the tribal text. After this period of practice, Moon can easily enter this state, but it is still very mentally exhausting to maintain it. After each completion, Moon has to rest for a long time. Just when Moon was about to take a break, the three great witches of Xinjiang Island arrived at Xinguang Island again. Behind them were Lu Shaman who left yesterday, and the little girl who was judged by Moon to have a talent for magic. Lu's eyes were red and swollen, as if she had just cried. After seeing Moon, she immediately bowed respectfully. Thank you, High Priest, you really has a talent for wizards. If you hadn't discovered it, she might have been buried. You is Lu's youngest daughter. After being discovered by Moon yesterday that she had a talent for magic, she immediately led you to find the Spirit Tree Wizard. After some tests, you became the second little wizard in the tribe this year. When the little girl you saw Moon, she sweetly called the High Priest brother. Yesterday, You didn't know why she was arranged to take a second talent test. But when the wizard solemnly announced that she had a talent for magic, the little girl opened her mouth in surprise. On the way here, she was repeatedly told that it was the high priest who discovered her talent and she should be grateful. Moon saw that the little girl just nodded slightly when she saluted him. But his eyes unconsciously looked at the top of the other person's head twice more. Compared with yesterday, there was a light green mark on the little girl's forehead, and the wizard bar also increased slightly. Although the increase was not large, it only took 1 day, which still surprised Moon. He knew that there must be secrets in the tribe that he didn't know. Just when Moon was looking at the little girl, the spirit tree wizard Granny quickly came up and grabbed Moon's arm tightly. Good child, how did you find out that she has the talent of a wizard? The great witch of the spirit tree was very excited. When Lu led you back to Xilin Island yesterday to report this to her, the great witch of the spirit tree did not believe it at first. But thinking of the identity of the successor of the high priest Moon, she decided to give it a try. After the sacrifice last night, she immediately tested you, and then found that this little girl really has the talent of a wizard. This made the great witch of the spirit tree excited, and she hurriedly notified the great witches of the other 2 tribes. That's right, high priest, we didn't believe it yesterday, but Lu said that you only took a glance and found Ya's talent. How is this possible? Right, the great witch of Xilin also came to Xingguang Island in a hurry. He still hasn't figured out how Moon did it. Don't worry. Moon comforted the 3 great witches a little, and then slowly spoke. In fact, testing whether others can learn magic is just my talent. Don't be so surprised. Talent? The great witch of Xingmang asked curiously. Among the 3 great wizards in the tribe, Xingmang Great Wizard is the one who has the most thorough research on the tribe's witchcraft. But he has never heard of anyone with this talent. That's right, Moon nodded and replied. In fact, in the past, Moon never thought that his ability could help others discover magical talents. He has always used the wizard bar to judge the strength of a magician. Now it seems that the ability of the wizard bar is far more than that. Can you detect other people's wizard talents? Great Wizard Xilin didn't care what Moon's talent was. He just wanted to know if this ability worked for other people. It should be fine, Moon thought about it. Anyway, he didn't find that ordinary people have wizard bars. That's good, come with me quickly, there's a boat of children waiting for you to test, Great Wizard Xilin said, grabbing Moon's arm and walking towards the small pier. It's not just a few of them who came to Xingguang Island today, but also children of the right age on the entire Xingjian Island. These are the 831 children of the right age who were gathered overnight after the great wizards knew that you had a talent last night. After noticing the 3 witches leading the high priest back to the ship, the children who were just in a mess on the deck immediately became quiet. They looked ahead with burning eyes, as if waiting for the verdict of fate. The witches no longer cared about the children's thoughts at this time, they just looked at Moon quietly. What do we need to do? Do we need to cast some magic to make them line up one by one? After Moon stood still, the witch Xilin asked anxiously. No, I just need to take a look. The 3 witches looked at each other. Although they had heard about Moon's identification method from Lu yesterday, they still couldn't believe it without seeing it with their own eyes. That is, when they were still hesitating, Moon had raised his hand and pointed at the little wizard in the crowd. She. Chapter 199 Tribal Spirit Tree. When Moon pointed to the 5th child, Lang, who was standing beside him, could not help himself. High Priest, I know that you are very capable in actual combat, but selecting talented children is completely different from dueling. In fact, not only Lang, but also the tribal wizards standing beside Moon were all shocked by Moon's selection action. They have all undergone the tribal talent test and know that this is a very tedious and complicated process. The sacrifice must be performed on the night of the full moon, and before the sacrifice, all children must pray to the spirit tree sincerely. Only in this way can they enter the selection range of the spirit tree, and then the great wizards will use the spirit leaves to test these selected children. Moon's action is not to mention sincerity, and even the sacrifice link is omitted. In the eyes of a tribal wizard, this is just like picking beans. No, it is even simpler than picking beans. Because Moon does not need to pick out beans of different colors, just a casual finger can decide a child's future. Of course I know that this is different from a duel, but don't worry, I didn't miss a talented child, Moon just responded casually, and then continued to shuttle through the crowd. Every time he pointed out a new child, the child would be led by the tribal wizards to stand in front of the crowd. After finally selecting 9 young wizards, Moon also returned to the Great Wizard. Originally, the Great Wizards were very excited when they saw the young wizards being selected. But as the number of people increased, the faces of the Great Wizards gradually became ugly. These children of the right age in front of them were between 7 and 17 years old, which was also the best time for young wizards to discover their talents and learn magic. If they were over 17 years old, then this talent would probably be buried, and even could not be discovered in the future. After seeing a 16-year-old child stand up, the Great Wizards knew that they might have really missed a lot of talented children over the years. These are all the future of tribal wizards. As the guardians of the tribe, they did not discover the talents of these children, which was a serious mistake. And Moon only found 10 young wizards among these children of the right age. They dared not imagine how many talented children they had missed in the past. Great Priest, are you sure these children have wizard talent? The Great Witch of Lingshu stood up tremblingly and looked at Moon in disbelief. That's right, Moon just nodded casually. After seeing Moon's affirmative expression, the three Great Witches looked at each other and sighed helplessly. Alice, we should be responsible for what happened in the past. Yes, we have harmed many children, we should be responsible for what happened in the past, but shouldn't we test these children first now? The Great Witch Xilin looked at the problem as sharply as ever. In his opinion, if you miss it, you miss it. The most important thing now is not to pursue responsibility, but what to do in the future. Now Moon has reselected 10 little wizards. These are all children they did not find in the talent sacrifice. If they can be proved that they all have wizard talent, then no children in the tribe will be missed in the future. This is related to the future development of the tribe's wizards. After being reminded by the Great Witch Xilin, the Great Witch of Lingshu did not hesitate. After she took a wooden box from Lu, she slowly walked to the front of the 10 children. Moon was very curious about the way the tribal wizards tested their magical talents, so he kept a close eye on the actions of the Spirit Tree Wizard. After getting the green wooden box, the Spirit Tree Wizard first pulled out a wooden hairpin from his hair. With a slight slide, the box opened. Unlocking spell? No. Looking at the actions of the Spirit Tree Wizard, Moon subconsciously thought of the allow opening that he learned at Hogwarts. However, the Spirit Tree Wizard seemed to be performing a combination of unlocking spell and anti-theft spell. After the box was opened, the Spirit Tree Wizard put the wooden hairpin back into his hair, and then casually picked out a long leaf from the box. Willow leaf. Moon was very familiar with willow trees, and he knew the species of the leaf just by looking at it. However, this leaf was still a little different from ordinary willow leaves. Its color was darker, and even a little black. In order to observe more clearly, Moon immediately took out a monocular from his pocket and put it on his right eye frame. It was at this time that the Spirit Tree Great Witch Granny came to the first child with a willow leaf between her legs. While chanting the spell, she placed a willow leaf between the child's eyebrows. As the spell was finished, a familiar rune first appeared on the willow leaf, and then instantly disappeared. The leaf itself also completely dissipated, but a light green mark appeared on the child's forehead. This mark was the same as the one Moon had seen on Yao. Really? It's true, Tuo really has wizard talent. The first child in the line was named Tuo, from the Xilin tribe. After discovering that the willow leaf dissipated and a mark appeared on the child's forehead, Lang shouted in disbelief. The three great witches behind him were also full of surprise. Although they had known about Moon's ability from a long time ago, it was still unbelievable to see this magical selection method with their own eyes. It turns out that picking a little wizard is really easier than picking beans. Lang's words made the faces of the three great witches become very ugly. After giving his son a lesson, the Great Witch of Xilin came back to watch the Spirit Tree Great Witch Granny test the next child. Moon didn't care about the results. He was very sure that the person he selected would not make a mistake. However, the detection method of the tribal witches gave him a clue. Moon kept watching the movements of the Spirit Tree Witch and the magical leaf. When the Spirit Tree Witch took a new leaf, Moon could clearly see through his monocular that the leaf had a very rich green life energy. And in this full of green, there was also a lot of black energy. As the Spirit Tree Witch chanted this spell, the green energy suddenly became stronger and then formed a rune. Moon had split this rune from another alchemical item. Moon has never given up on the study of alchemy. He has now mastered 3 basic runes. One is the enhancement rune, for making a collar for Lu Wei, and the other 2 are from the magic talent detector from the Bailey family, induction rune, and link rune. The rune that just flashed on the willow leaf is very similar to the induction rune. No wonder it can be used to detect talent. Moon found that the runes on the willow leaf were more complete than those on the magic talent detector. And the entire stroke was very smooth, without any signs of deliberate modification. Logically speaking, its accuracy should not be so low. Seeing the second willow leaf disappear, Moon guessed that it was the black energy on the willow leaf that was causing the trouble. This is why the tribal wizards missed so many talented children. I had a high fever last night and my mind was a little confused. The next chapter may be a little late. I hope readers don't mind. Chapter 200, The Cursed Spirit Tree. After Moon finished his selection, with a clear direction, the Spirit Tree Wizard's test was much faster. After using the 10th leaf, the tribal wizards were a little excited. 10 little wizards, this is the most wizard talents detected in more than 10 years. Every child who was selected was also very excited. After confirming that they had wizard talents, they walked to Moon one by one and saluted respectfully. "Thank you, High Priest. Thank you, High Priest. I will be loyal to you for life." After a 16-year-old child said the words of loyalty, the little wizards following behind also expressed their opinions. There were even little wizards who wanted to kneel down and kiss Moon's boots. This made Moon, who had seen the world, a little at a loss. "Don't do this, you just need to study witchcraft well in the future." Moon hurriedly bent down and pushed away a little boy who was about to put his mouth closed to his boots, and hurriedly stepped back a few steps. "High Priest, this is the respect you deserve." Lang noticed that Moon had been trying to retreat, so he walked over and held his shoulders firmly. If you hadn't discovered their talents today, they would have been ordinary people their whole lives and would never have entered the world of witchcraft, so you deserve their highest respect. I know this is respect, but there's no need to kiss their boots. Moon didn't think he had done anything remarkable. He just took a look and pointed them out from the crowd. For Moon, eating was more troublesome than this. Seeing that the little wizards wanted to gather and bend over for review, Moon hurriedly spoke again. "Hugs, handshakes, and even bows are all fine." Moon never thought wizards were so noble, especially under the influence of another world. Moon knew clearly that people were completely equal, and even ordinary people should be like this when facing wizards. Of course, in this world, because wizards hold more powerful powers, ordinary people will inevitably have awe, fear, respect and other emotions. Especially in the hearts of the children of the tribe, they have been instilled with the need for wizards to protect the tribe since childhood, so they are more worthy of respect. With such a concept, the children of the tribe naturally hope to become wizards. And the finger that Moon had just pointed out had truly determined their future life path. Under Moon's insistence, Lang stopped struggling, and the little wizards came up and hugged Moon one by one. But Moon's shoulders were soon soaked with their tears. "Okay, stop crying, you are lucky enough to be chosen by the High Priest." After noticing that the children were very excited, the great wizard Xilin came out to help Moon out. In addition to the excitement of these little wizards, the children who were not chosen also stared at Moon with burning eyes. They now hoped that the smart and slender finger could point in their direction. The great witch of the spirit tree also sensed the gazes of these children, and she found Moon with a leaf. "High Priest, are there any more?" "No, there are only 10 of them." Seeing Moon shaking his head, the children around who were not pointed out all lowered their heads in disappointment, and 1 or 2 even began to cry silently. In fact, judging from the number of wizards who have awakened in the tribe over the years, this time is far more than before. Don't mind it. With a high priest here in the future, we will not miss any child. The words of the Star Wizard were very obscure. It is estimated that only 3 wizards and Moon knew what he meant by this sentence. The tribesmen were carrying an extremely vicious curse. As long as this curse has not been lifted, the inheritance of the tribe's wizards will be in danger of being cut off. And the best way to cut off the inheritance of the tribe's wizards is naturally to keep the talents of the young wizards from being discovered. The great wizard Xilin also noticed the sadness in the crowd, and he walked out and shouted loudly. The tribesmen shed blood but not tears. What's the use of crying? What you have to do now is to live well, grow up well, and have more children. As long as the high priest is here, we will never miss any of your future children. The words of the great wizard Xilin did not seem to work for these children. Only 1 or 2 older teenagers could understand the meaning of his words. Most of the children still couldn't help sobbing there. Don't cry, children, go back to the cabin. In fact, ordinary people and wizards are the same, working hard for the future of the tribe. When the witch of the spirit tree spoke, she must have added some magic to it. Even when Moon heard this, his mood was unconsciously calmed down. As for those children who had no talent for magic, after hearing this, they all wiped the tears from their faces and lined up to walk towards the cabin. When they saw that their companions who came with them had no choice but to return to the cabin, the selected little wizards looked at Moon with more respect. They knew that from now on, they would embark on a different path. Moon did not pay attention to the eyes of these little wizards. After everything was done, he went straight to the spirit tree house. "Witch, can you lend me this leaf?" After hearing Moon's request, the witch of the spirit tree opened the box immediately without any hesitation. "These are leaves from the spiritual tree of our tribe. Some of them fall every time we perform a sacrifice. I collected them last night after the sacrifice." There were 3 leaves in the box. While listening to the explanation of the great witch, Moon picked up a leaf and placed it in his palm. As soon as he touched the leaf, Moon felt a warm and vibrant feeling coming from it. But then the warmth gradually cooled down, and then there was a tingling feeling in his palm. Is it cursed too? The Moon was talking about was naturally the spiritual tree that produced the leaves. Moon was very familiar with this tree species. When he was choosing the material for the wand at Ollivander, he was chosen by a willow wand. The wand he made for himself later also came from a huge willow tree. So when this willow leaf fell on Moon's palm, he could clearly feel that the other party had a feeling of weakness and helplessness, barely holding on. That's right, the curse of Erebus has affected the spirit tree. Even though I have tried my best to maintain it, the spirit tree has completely fallen asleep, and these leaves are likely to be the last stock for the next 3 years. Hearing what the spirit tree witch said, Moon put the leaves back into the box very cherished and handed them back to her sincerely. However, the spirit tree witch did not take it, but pushed it directly to Moon. "It's okay, just take it if you like. Although these leaves were very precious to us before, now that you are here, these things are no longer needed." After just going through 10 tests, Moon's ability has been affirmed by a group of tribal wizards. Especially the random and highly accurate selection method, which makes the wizards know that Moon is far more worthy of cherishing than the spirit tree. "That's right, High Priest, you can play with these little things as much as you want in the future," the Great Witch Highland said very straightforwardly beside him. In his opinion, Moon's magic combat strength has far exceeded his expectations. Now it has solved the problem that has troubled them the most for 100 years. This makes him more convinced that Moon is the successor of the High Priest. Hearing what the witches said, Moon took the leaf without hesitation. He was studying alchemical runes, and the runes on this willow leaf happened to be useful to him. But in addition to being interested in the leaves, Moon wanted to see the spiritual tree mentioned by the witches of the tribe. "Grandma Witch, can I go see the spiritual tree?" End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.